Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this meeting, and welcome to our guests in the back. It's nice to see you all here today. So we're going to follow the agenda as according to the agenda. So we're going to do the public forum first, and then that will be followed by the presentation from Te Wharaora. So when you're ready, Sarah, if you want to come up and we'll get started. Oh, hang on, we've just got to take apologies first. Sorry. Do we have any apologies for the meeting? Yeah.
Just apology for I'll have to leave a bit earlier. Thank you. Chair Ellie.
And Erin, apologies. Are there any further apologies? None for Leighton Sharon. Thank you. So could somebody please move those apologies be accepted? Thank you, Councillor Scott. Seconded, Councillor Peter. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Right, welcome to the Mokomok crew. Some very familiar faces out there. Nice to see you all. So Sarah, when you're ready, you're more than welcome to come up to the presentation table. Just here. Yes, we've got it all locked and loaded and ready to go. Sarah, there is a device there that you can use to change the slides. And for those who don't know Sarah, so Sarah Gibbs lives at Mokomok and she's here with her husband, Matt. Nice to see you both. Oh, sorry. No, I'm talking about down the back. I'm sorry. Apologies for that. Very close community. Keep it turned on. Keep it turned on. Yeah, that would be awesome. Still not good. I'm shaking it up. Do you want a water there? Yes, do it first.
And just let me know when you want to move the slide along. Then you'll move it from my end.
Cool, I'll just get some of these out for you guys to look at as well. Thank you. We have got a copy of it on the screens. We put our own one through our iPads. Oh, he did? Yes. Oh, sorry. So we can just click through that tonight. You'll have one? Oh, sorry. You mouse will have one?
Over here, please.
Oh, is it flicking through now? Oh, okay. On the side there, right, there you go. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Wellbeing Committee and Development Committee. My name is Sarah Gibbs and I'm here to share with you in a very nervous way some concerns that I have around the renewable resources that we have within Tararua and how they're being used and the potential for future issues that could be created from this. So because my wellbeing is being affected at the moment around this, I wanted to define for you what I thought wellbeing meant. And so I looked up the WHO definition, and I'd like to draw your attention to the first point around the positive state experienced by individuals and societies. The third point around the quality of life and the ability of people and societies to contribute to the world with a sense of meaning and purpose. And the last point, society's wellbeing can be determined by the extent to which it is resilient, builds capacity for action, and is prepared to transcend challenge. So if we bear those points in mind as we continue through the presentation, that would be very helpful. If we can press the button, please. So the next slide draws your attention to 3 emotions that I'm currently feeling around the renewable resources within our district. The first one is fear. I have a fear around energy companies coming into our district and using the renewable resources to the detriment of our community, but to the benefit of their own bottom line. I have fear around the community, the sustainability of these developments, and that this could decrease our capacity to be resilient and thrive as a community. I have fear around the lack of respect that these companies would show long term to the communities, and that they would build these enterprises free will due to no rules currently around how they can be used nationally and locally. I have fear around offshore companies coming into New Zealand and using these renewable resources locally and centrally to greenwash their poor behaviour globally. I'm having stress and sleepless nights, and it's real because as we'll go through the process, you'll see that all of these emotions are around a current proposal that is being currently seemingly consulted. And I would really like you to ask yourselves the question, would you like the Ruahine Ranges and that national park to have windmills on it? Because that's potentially where we could be heading. I have frustration around people pretending that this is going to go away and that we're abstaining action because of thinking that it's just not going to hit us. It is going to hit us, but especially with the fast track consenting bill. And I feel that this is the opportunity for us as a group, the council, taxpayer, ratepayers and community to really make a change for the greater good of New Zealand, not just our local community. So if we go to the next slide, the other thing that I'm fearful of is the fracture that is happening within communities where relationships that were once friendships are now no longer friendships, which breeds unhealthy communities and generational fractures, which that's not the intention at all. I'd like to draw your attention to a noise map that, so this has all been brought about, like I said, based on a proposal which is currently being consulted. There's a noise map that we have received highlighting that if you see the green line and how close that is to Payatua, everyone within the Payatua district, the residential town, is potentially going to hear these turbines. We live 5 kilometres away from the Turitea windmills and we hear them pretty regularly, and this would be within that distance, maybe 8 kilometres from Payatua. So the impact to the community, we know that this is a model, and the danger is with a model that you don't even know how this is going to react and respond until the project is developed. So the danger is that once it's up, it's too late. So this doesn't just relate to this project, it relates to all future projects that could be potentially coming our way. And solar farms as well, but I don't know enough about solar farms to comment. The next slide. So if we go up to the next slide, this is a model that we have created, and you'll see the difference between the 2 windmills. So the windmill that is currently on the Turitea site is on the right, and it's much smaller than the current windmills that are being proposed to go on the site, which is very close to our house. So you can see the difference in the size, which of course correlates to difference in noise, difference in a whole lot of other things, but that's not the point of this conversation. The next slide highlights the impact that it will have on my view from my bedroom window, which is about 5 or 6 metres up. So I'm a double-storied home. Windmills are meditative at a distance, but when they're that close and at that size, not so sure that I would call it meditative. The next slide on the, this shows the view from central Payatua. Once again, it's a model. And from a distance, yeah, I don't know, it's an opinion. they look nice. It's an opinion. It's just making you aware. And then if on the following slide, the last slide of modelling, it highlights the view from the Mangatonoka Bridge going into Payatua. So that's what you'll see when you come out of Payatua. So you may be asking yourself, well, what does this have to do with me? Well, as a district, this has everything to do with all of us in this room. And as a council, I was lucky enough to be able to give an access to your values. So if we go to the next slide, which highlights the council values, this is how you can potentially help us and work together with us to make the greater good for our communities going forward. So if we look at the first value, which is pono, we need to really ask the hard question here and ask for honesty and accountability within the council team and really understand where you sit with regards to the future of renewable resource projects, because this is fundamental to us going forward. We also would like to understand whether the council will be willing to help us to potentially work to lobby central government to make changes in the fast track consent process. And we need that as a team. We can't do that alone. And I can't do that alone at all. So I would like to propose that we work together as a group and include iwi in that process. This is especially relevant to the growth strategy, the urban growth strategy, which is currently under consultation, because without some kind of rules, we won't be drawing people to our community. We potentially will be pushing them away. We also have to ask ourselves the hard questions around what legacy it is that we want to leave for the next generation. We've got a unique landscape. We've got to take care of the diversification around the projects that we sign up to. Do we want to sign up to potential graveyards? We haven't got evidence of that in our community yet. However, globally, there is evidence of that. And also Vietnam has had some issues recently where windmills have just fallen over. So potentially we're signing up to companies not taking responsibility for their developments. So my proposal to you would be that we work together alongside council, ratepayers and iwi to create a community and local government lobby group where we go to central government and make changes that are insightful for the entire community and for New Zealand as a whole. This is an opportunity for the council to be New Zealand leaders, I guess, in the fact that we would be making changes for the future. And it's our chance to be proactive. So if we go to the next slide, and the next value that we have is whanake, excuse my Māori pronunciation. I believe that this is an opportunity for all of us as a community to take some profound action, which will be fundamental to the health of New Zealand and the Tararua community. This is not something that any of us could have foreseen, and I feel that in order for us to make profound changes, we need to protect the impact that these renewable resource projects have on our environment and landscape. We have to ask ourselves the hard questions around what is the community willing to accept? Are we willing to accept fractures within the community and relationships that are broken? Are we willing to accept companies that show little or no respect to our district rules or lack of rules as the case is currently? And are we willing to sign up to a government who signs up for things that don't directly impact them centrally, but locally the impact is much broader? These are questions that we can answer as a group, but individually we can't. So inside of that, it's an amazing opportunity for us to collaborate. It's a great opportunity to show central government that we've got a strong community and entity as a council. And it's a huge challenge because companies coming in and promising funding resources and funding streams can be dangerous. And essentially it's bribery, if you want to break it down and be quite blunt about it. So I feel it would be short-sighted for the council to not work collaboratively with iwi and the community to lobby central government. And I feel that to accept that companies will promise funding and more jobs. It's quite short-sighted because these projects are built within 3 to 5 years and then they leave. Ultimately the company stays because of the project, but the manpower leaves. So what are we going to accept going forward? Finally, if we look at the final value that we have as a council, it's whanaungatanga, sorry, pronunciation. My nerves are getting the better of me. I feel that this is really a true opportunity for the council and us as citizens of Tararua to truly implement and collaborate around the shared vision of the community, addressing the overall well-being of the people, the land and the renewable resources, and thus ensuring sustainability for our future generations. It's an opportunity to really showcase the council and how high performing they are, and it will also highlight how fully engaged we are as a community within Tararua. Finally, to end the presentation, I'd like to highlight that united we stand, divided we fall. As an individual within the community, I can't do this alone. I'm asking for the council to help me. And finally, in the words of council, and not to sound like it's so antiquated or overused, he waka eke noa. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. That was a very impassioned address, and we do thank you for your time. I'd just like to point out too, and I forgot at the beginning, just to let you know, this meeting is being recorded, so you can actually go back on to the council website and listen to it at any time once it's up online. So, but thank you for your time and your attention, and Councillor Sharon.
Thank you, Chair Ellison. Thank you, Sarah. I can sense the passion and the commitment from you and other members of the community. I'm curious to understand, you've indicated that there are fractures in the community. Can that be rectified with whatever action happens? Is there a way to bring the community back together again, and what actions would that take, do you think?
The fractures have come about through the consultation of the current project, and the fractures that could be generated going forward with any other project would need to be monitored by having processes that aren't currently in place to make sure that the projects are run to a plan. Currently, there is very little, if any, rules around how these projects can be implemented. So potentially communities are being possibly railroaded by companies or private landowners who are getting remuneration rewards. So the only way to really ensure that that doesn't happen is for the council to create some rules and that assess the sites of the projects accurately, so that then one or two private landowners aren't benefiting at the detriment for the community long term. I don't, is anyone else? Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Tracy.
Thanks, and thank you for your presentation. I had one query. The flyer that went around the next community consultation didn't have a venue on it. Are you able to shed any light? I have asked the question, but haven't got an answer back from the team yet.
It's at Balance Hall next, the 13th. Is that Wednesday, Tuesday? Wednesday, the 13th. I think it starts at 5:30.
Good that it's not a Friday. So thank you again very much. Oh, sorry, Councillor Long.
For you, Chair Ellison. Thanks, Sarah, for that. Sarah, I want just a tiny bit of a feedback. Do you want rules brought in place for where these turbines go, or do you want them not there at all?
This current project, I would prefer didn't happen at all due to the direct impact on my house. I'm not against turbines being put up, but I think it's like the trees. right place, right. What is it? Right tree, right place. Okay, so right turbine, right place, or right solar panel, right place, because it doesn't just refer to, it refers to all renewable resources, and making sure that we assess where those go properly and accurately, so that then the impact is totally, well, you mitigate it as much as you possibly can. So yeah, I'm not against renewable resources, don't get me wrong there. We've got solar panels on our cow shed, but I believe that assessment of the areas where they go needs to be a bit more robust. Yeah, thank you for taking my nerves.
Can I add I totally agree. And one of the things we want to emphasize is that these turbines need to be placed in the best locations which have the best wind resources, not anywhere. The issue is putting them anywhere in non-ideal locations, which technically our one is. They just make them bigger. We recognize that wind energy is a good renewable resource, but they do need to be sort of isolated to only the best locations, because they have a huge, profound impact on the surrounding land, essentially because of the noise impact, whether it's a setback or a 40 decibel noise limit. You are rendering a very large area uninhabitable effectively. And so these need to be only put in the best locations, not just anywhere where a landowner wants to make some money.
Just further to that, are these the biggest windmills that are planned for New Zealand? So what's the research behind them with the shadow, with the vibration, with the noise and other effects?
Projected to be 200 meters tall, tip height, which is larger than anything that I'm aware of that's operating. They're certainly not the largest in the world. They're getting much larger every year. There are noise issues, which is why we have the noise map, which is again an estimate of the area of impact. There are biovibration issues. There are lots of studies about this. So yeah, there are widespread implications. And the issue is these are getting bigger and bigger every year. So things like setbacks, like Palmerston has a 1.5K setback. That's all well and good for a 125 meter tall turbine. What about a 200 meter turbine, 250? So it needs to be intelligent restrictions based on the size and the predicted impact of these turbines. We don't have that.
Thank you for that. I'll take one more. Johns and then wrap it up. Thanks.
Thanks, thanks, Chair Allison. Yes, Sarah, very well presented, and thank you. Tell me, you talk about a fractured community. Do you feel it's fractured yet, or might be? It's fractured now. What percentage of the mock balance area would you consider to be against the proposal as opposed to for it?
About 80%. I think that would be inaccurate. Maybe 90%, but then some people are putting their heads in the sand thinking it's going to go away. So you count them as nil, I would suggest. Yeah.
Again, thank you very much, Sarah. It's been a pleasure to have you here in the chamber today, and we wish you well. Thank you. Well, welcome to stay if you want to. Let's go quick. Okay, so we'll move on to the first presentation today, and welcome to Sally Dara and Natasha Nikorotate.
My who's well more resourced than I.
Oh, so So you've subbed somebody in. Well done. That's delegation 101. Thank you, Natasha, and welcome. Sorry, can I have your name, please? Nicola Fleming. Thank you. Ladies, the floor is yours.
E whānau mai o ki Pahi atua, ki ake o ki Kaitawa, ki Atua. Yeah, so I was born in Pahi atua, and I grew up in Kaitawa, farm there. Yeah, I lived there for the first sort of 40-ish years. So, it's great to be speaking to you today. And introduce yourself.
I'm Nicola Fleming, born and bred in Dannevirke, the local dental therapist that services pretty much the whole of the Tararoa, but predominantly in Dannevirke. And I've been a dental therapist for 23 years, did take a break to have my children, but I've been back in Dannevirke coming up 13 years. And
I'd just like to acknowledge our other supporters. We've got Natasha Nikora Taiti, who works in my team. I'm an oral health promotion advisor, working sort of in the health space alongside the oral health team. And Shona as well, who dental assistant. So thank you for having us today. It's a real honour speaking to you. Okay, so the topic for today is fluoridation. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background, I guess, from an oral health perspective, and then talk a little bit about the other things that we do, which would support fluoridation in the water supply and how they come in together. This is
Excuse me, Sally, can you just bring your microphone a little closer to you, please? Yeah, it's flashing. Can we swap it with the other?
Otherwise, I'm going to speak in my big loud voice. Thank you very much. Is that better? Okay. So go on to the next slide. That would be great.
This is moving.
Yeah, it's not moving for me. Fine, right. If you just click. Awesome. Okay, so fluoridation obviously is one part of protecting the teeth of our whānau in New Zealand, and so I just thought it would be useful to outline just some of the other things that happen as well, because what we are about is really making sure that trying to address kind of every gap really. No system is perfect, and so it is really good to look at lots of different ways that we can protect the teeth of our community. So one of the things that's been happening recently is the Oral Health Promotion Initiative. Some of you may have seen the Tooth Fairy on TV. She brushes a parent's teeth late at night. And this has gone alongside a campaign where the Ministry of Health have provided toothbrushes and toothpastes to be given out in well child appointments. Quite a lot of our iwi Māori providers, Pacifica providers, and lots of other providers who are working with families in need are able to give out that product, because what we're finding is that there's a lot of families, particularly those who are quite affected by the rising costs of things, who actually don't have that product. So that means that actually that whole family is able to then brush their teeth. The parents are able to role model that, and they all have the product to do so. Can we go on, please? Okay, we also have our community oral health service. So we have, obviously, as Nicola said before, they're working in this community, and we have, they are a mobile service. They work out of clinics, at schools. They have dental vans and caravans which go to different schools or different community places. So we have a sort of a variety. Some go to some of them are just placed at schools, but some are based out of health centres, and we're always working on being able to get that more flexibility to be able to reach more people who might not be able to access the oral health service any other way. So this is for children up to the age of year 8, and from year 9 onwards until people are 18, they are able to access a dentist who works who is a private dentist who is funded by the government. Okay, next one. Okay, and we've also been supporting, part of our team, supporting Kohanga Reo, Pacifica ECEs, and some of our Pacifica churches as well, through their Sunday schools and creches. And that again is that oral health knowledge, that product, and working alongside that community to remove those barriers to oral health care. So like helping them to get engaged with an oral health service if they're not already engaged. Okay, next one. Okay, I just pulled out a little bit of data today because obviously the data that we have on Rihanna's presentation is quite old, but a lot of it is still really similar. So the stat that she said about 40% more likely in a fluoridated environment to have better teeth is still relevant today. So we have, this was in the New Zealand Health Survey, which has recently come out for 22-23. So about 3 out of 4 adults reported that their oral health to be good, very good or excellent. 65.9% of children aged 1 to 14 years and 68.2% of adults brush their teeth with standard fluoride toothpaste at least twice each day. So which means there's probably about 30% in each of those groups who aren't. For both adults and children, teeth brushing twice daily decreased as neighbourhood deprivation increased. Nearly 60% of adults and children living in the most deprived neighbourhoods brush twice a day with fluoridated toothpaste, compared to nearly 80% of adults and children living in the least deprived neighbourhoods. Nearly half of the adults, 44%, experienced unmet need for dental care and cost in the past 12 months. This is higher than 2021-22, but similar to years prior. Unmet need for dental care was highest amongst those aged 25 to 34 years at 56% and 35 to 44 years at 54.1%, and lowest in the older age groups. Locally, we see about 8 to 10 referrals per week going of children who are referred for general anaesthetic to remove teeth. And so originally our plan was for Philip Marshall, who is our chief dentist at Te Whatu Ora in Mid Central, to come and speak to you today. But today he was doing a GA clinic, general anaesthetic clinic, and he was concerned that he would not be able to make it if it ran over. So he gave me the information and delegated me to come. He was very excited about coming though, so he's quite sad that he couldn't come. And so another interesting stat in 2022 in Mid Central, and this is for 5-year-olds, there were 1,253 children who had their teeth examined, and out of those, 782, which is 58%, were caries-free. On the other side of things, we had, and this is across all the children, so some children might have had more than one, there was 2,515 decayed, missing, filled teeth. Decayed, missing or filled teeth. So yeah, that's quite a substantial amount. And I think something I really just wanted to highlight that is an oral health service and working in that oral health promotion space, we are continually trying to find new innovations to improve the well-being of teeth across our populations. And they include things like we've recently got data from the Ministry of Health where they have told us who are the adolescents who have actually missed out on a dental appointment last year, which is a new piece of data we've not had before, which has meant that we're able to then contact them and offer them an appointment. And yeah, so in the past we were just kind of guessing who didn't have an appointment, but now we actually know who they are. And we're continually working to make sure that the systems that we have improve. Like at the moment, all the dental units across the country are on separate information systems because they were all funded by different DHVs. That's going to be brought together. So it means that if somebody lives in Norsewood or just above Norsewood, that we can see, you know, where what their status is, what's happened with their teeth, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of improvements which are happening, but I think there is benefit in taking the opportunity to try and get all the pieces of the puzzle together. So thank you very much for having us today. And if you've got any questions, I'd love to answer. Or I'll do my best.
Thank you, Sally.
I may have to get professional advice, but I might do that.
Councillor Wards.
Thank you, Chair Alison. Lovely to see you, Sally and Nicola. Back in the day when I used to run the Tararua Health Group, I was able to bring the mobile surgical bus in, and that was the first in the Mid-Central District to do it. And I remember back in the day, Phil used to say to me, he said, "Why on earth isn't this water supply fluoridated?" Because that bus used to rock in every 6 weeks. I'm assuming it does so at the moment, but the majority of the work undertaken on that bus was little E's with teeth being pulled out, and it used to break my heart. So my question is, are those waiting lists still there? Obviously, Phil's tied up doing GA, I assume, in Palmy, but are they still performing dental surgery on that mobile bus that rocks into our town still? So I know it's pretty scary, Nicola. I don't know if you've got.
Yeah, so the mobile surgical bus does still come. We don't have dental as often as we used to. So yeah, if I'm referring kids, you're probably looking sometimes about 8 months before they're seen. So I'll refer for whatever needs to be done, but by the time they get to have that done, of course the work's deteriorated. So generally it's extractions. Yeah. If I can try and treat them in the clinic, I will, but sometimes this is necessary.
And they used to sit on their parents' knees. Yeah.
I just wanted to add to that, like the way that I often describe fluoride when we are out doing oral health promotion things is that it's like painting a house. So when like when there's storms or big wind or whatever, there's elements that are coming at your house which and destroying that paintwork. So the elements that are attacking our teeth are the food that we eat and the bacteria that was then on our teeth, which our saliva has some effect on. But by brushing our teeth, it's like layering a bit of fluoride, a little bit of paint on, a light coating of paint a couple of times a day. And then if the water that we're drinking is also got that fluoride in it, it's like another coating which is protecting our teeth. And so it's kind of like, every time you have a drink of water, if it's fluoridated, then it's going to protect your teeth a bit more. And that's, particularly for people that don't have access to the product for whatever reason, they, benefit a lot from that.
Thank you, Councillor Scott.
Thanks very much, Chair Alison, and thank you very much for coming in and I've really enjoyed hearing sort of both sides of the discussion. And although adding fluoride isn't a decision for this council, there are a number of community concerns about the safety and the efficacy of adding that in. So I guess my question is there anything else that Te Whatu Ora is able to do to be providing more information into the community to be able to reassure people and just make sure that there is a balanced view? So just wondering if that was at all possible.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I guess that's just would be a process with working alongside council to get the information that you need, or help to filter that out to other groups as well. So yeah, absolutely happy to be supporting in that way. So just let us know what you need and we'll help.
And thanks very much for that. I probably more mean with council not being a decision maker within this, if there's something that either Te Whatu Ora could do through our health system or our health services to be able to make sure that we get that information. I think for us, I'm very keen to make sure that we aren't necessarily taking a position on something that we have no influence over, but there is a very loud side of genuinely concerned people, and it's making sure that there is that balance view. So that would be a request to see, is there some way that Te Whatuora can get that information out to people?
The answer is yes. Yeah, so we'll work, I guess, to think about a communications plan. Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a date for fluoridation here?
Yeah.
Councillor Peter.
Thanks, Chair Ellison. In fact, Councillor Gilmore's questions pretty much the same as mine, but I guess adding to that, and given some of the comments and worries of the anti-fluoride brigade, is Palmerston North fluoridated? How long has it been fluoridated? 30, 40, 50 years sort of thing. Yeah. Do you know if the percentage of idiots in Palmerston North are greater than the percentage of idiots in Taurua? Because one of the reasons that the anti-brigade put forward is that there is increased idiocy through the absorption of fluoride in the body. Data to have a look at.
Thank you.
So Peter, you always do manage to put a bit of humour in somewhere. But the point is, of course, the squeaky wheel is what tends to get the oil, and they have been very, very squeaky. Hence our invitation for you to come and present your side of the issue. So, Councillor Mike.
For you, Chair, thank you. First of all, Councillor just made a comment there. I think there is concern of people feeding babies and they're being medicated the same as a 80, 100 kilo person. So a baby is requiring formula and that's their only food for the day. And also there is talk that you increase the fluoride if you boil the water, and most people boil water for babies. Yeah. So the other thing is that these people aren't anti-fluoride, anti-fluoride in the water. They brush their teeth with fluoride toothpaste. Okay, so let's be clear about this. Yep.
No, thanks, Councillor Mike. I think that we'll just leave that there for now. Thank you. Thank you. It's been a real pleasure to have you here. I think we'll wind this up now, if that's okay with you. And I'd like to finish off by my generation will certainly know what I'm talking about. Is there was a wonderful poet from Berkshire in England called Pam Ayres, who wrote the poem and recited the poem, "I wish I'd looked after me teeth." And I can relate to that, having just been through a full mouth reconstruction. So I think it's really important that people do hear both sides of the story, even though, as Councillor Scott pointed out, we are powerless to be able to do anything about it one way or the other. But I think it's really fair that we all listen to both sides of the argument. Thank you very much. And thanks for your time. Thanks, Natasha. Oh, and before you go too, by the way, I looked at your name. As soon as you mentioned Kaitaura, I thought, yeah, I've got the right family. It's been a long time, but I can remember you when that back. Oh. Very good friends with your parents.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
You know about him, right?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Keep up the good work. Yes, absolutely.
Now, the next item on the agenda was a presentation from Gilda and Andrew from the Pahiatua Museum about the 80th reunion. Unfortunately, well, not fortunately for them, they've had to tear up to Auckland because they're getting a new grandbaby today. So I said I would just give a brief summary of where we're at with the 80th anniversary, which is going to be incredibly exciting. As you're probably aware, there's not a lot of the children from the children's Polish camp left. However, the legacy is coming down through the generations, and the children of the children and the grandchildren of the children want to see this relationship with the Poles and Pahiatua continued. It is great news to hear that both St Anthony's and Pahiatua Primary School have got in their story in their curriculum this year, because to me this goes back to lest we forget. And if we don't teach the children from this age about what those 744 orphans went through, losing their parents mostly to Auschwitz, the fact that they came here from babies through to teenagers and their whole life was in total disarray, but the community opened their arms to them to the point where I met a 96-year-old child from the Polish camp recently who pulled the blinds down in the museum, and anyone who's been in the Polish room in there will know that every name of every one of those 744 children is etched on those blinds. And we watched her trace her shaky hand until she found her name and her sister's name, and the tears were pouring down her face. And she turned to me and she said, we used to get given pennies. They gave us pennies, and we'd walk to town with our pennies clutched in our hands, and we'd go to the local shop and buy lollies, but the man never ever took our money. Those were the stories that really are just incredible to hear. So with those 744 children, there was 126 carers. Many of them stayed on and made their lives, not just in Pahiatua, very big Polish community in Wellington. And so we're working very closely with the Polish ambassador and the Polish Association in Wellington on this project, which for the first time this year is going to be a 2-day event. And we have to bear in mind the age of the children now. And I think the most incredible quote I ever heard was Shirley Hull's daughter, Rebecca, who would have been probably 5 at the time we went to the 70th anniversary. And we were at the museum and the bus arrived. And these elderly people all got off the bus in this little loud voice. She said, "Where's the children?" So, that was the picture that a child had. And when I looked at her, I thought, yeah, and a lot of them were that age when that happened. So, so basically what they're going to do this year is those who want to stay will be housed at Masters Hall, which is wonderful because it's just across the paddock from the marae, and the marae have agreed to host the first day of the reunion, which will involve, it's quite a big day. We're still working on the program, but the cinema Derek Sims will be showing the movie. There'll be 2 showings, one on Saturday and one on Sunday. So thankfully there's an elevator so we can take them in so that they can actually sit and watch the movie. Pahiatua School, Sharon Thorburn, who spoke at the Armistice Day Parade, is actually forming a choir from all of the primary schools to sing, and they are writing a song to welcome the Polish to Pahiatua. We're going to revisit the journey. They're going to be picked up by a rail car, because it's got to be a rail car now, from Palmerston Hall Station and brought across to Pahiatua through the Manawatu Gorge. They will be greeted at the station by the military, which is how they were greeted when they arrived at the trucks. They all had to climb into the trucks and be driven to the camp on the edge of town. We realise, of course, a lot of them won't be able to do that, so we're going to have buses as well. So, so that first day is really, really special. And then the second day, they want to try and focus around the centre gardens. And thanks to Mayor Tracy, we're going to have hopefully the 1st Battalion there too, which just adds that bit of military ceremony to the whole occasion. There'll be Polish dancers coming up from Wellington, and this is the 80th. This is huge this time round. So just wanted to give you a little brief outline. So it's in November, and we'll give you regular updates on that as we go through the process. But we've got a very enthusiastic committee. Everybody's got their shoulder to the plough. They do have a project I've spoken with Kimberly about. There's an amazing photograph, a black and white photograph of a New Zealand soldier with a pipe in his mouth, holding a child at arm's length up in the air, a little boy. And that little boy is now on this Polish reunion committee. So he lives in Wellington, and they've approached Weta Studios, who've come up with a proposal for a bronze statue, a full-size statue of that man and that child. Huge fundraising effort ahead. So we're going to work with Kimberly on looking at a fundraising plan to see how it can be done. I think it's going to be very difficult to get it done by November, but imagine that in our town, in our community, what an honourable thing to have as a memory. So I'll give you updates as we go. So basically that's where that's at. So, okay, so now we'll move on to the agenda. So do we have any conflicts notification of any items not on the agenda? No, there being none. Are there any conflicts of interest based on today's agenda? That's cool. So we'll go on to the confirmation of the last meeting's minutes. So we'll go page by page. So page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, and page 7. Could somebody please move that those be, thank you, Councillor Steve, Councillor Peter. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Now we go to the reports. And oh gosh, it's been a long process, but the Health Locality Progress report is not happening. So what I have here is an email that was sent to Adele yesterday by Arahina, the project manager for our locality plan. Kia ora, Adele. Further to the agenda item provided for the Wellbeing Council Hui, please note the current direction from the Minister as stated. The localities were also a way of new iwi Māori partnership boards and the Maori Health Authority to exercise joint decision making with Health New Zealand. With the disestablishment of the authority, I do not intend to progress localities, Reti said. So I've instructed Health New Zealand to stop work on localities pending further legislation. We await further advice to progress any mahi in this space. Until then, the localities are paused. So we're basically, the Maori Health Authority has been abolished. So we're kind of back to where we started. How many years ago, Sharon? 8 years ago. We've had one 5-year program where we produced what we thought was a pretty jolly good locality plan. And that got sort of overrun, but the new Maori Iwi Partnership Board taking this over, and now it's just been halted again. So we're in limbo, I'm afraid. So that certainly wasn't an absolute shock, because the national government made it quite clear that they were going to disestablish the Maori Health Board. So with that said, we might as well move on to the next item. Been a bit of a hectic chopping and changing of this agenda, I'm afraid. Okay, so now we're Sport Manawa 2. Sorry, you've had to sit and wait so patiently. Would you like to introduce yourself to Tauranga District Council, please?
Wairi o re te whare, ko Hinika o Monday tōku ingoa, he uri ahau no Ngāti Kahu ki Whangaroa, me Ngāti Kahungunu, me Ngāti Porou, me Ngā Puhi Anō Hoki. I te puaki au ki Tamaki Nui Arua, a e noho ana hau ki Tamaki Nui Arua. Kia ora tātou. My name is Hinekawa. I am the Tararua Community Connector for Sport Manawa 2, and I grew up here in Dannevirke and have lived in Dannevirke majority of my life. Yes, that's me. So I just wanted to give an update. So I will take the report as read, but I do want to give a few updates of things that are mentioned in the report. First thing is the Tararua Sports Awards. It's our biggest event, sporting event here in the Tararua from our organisation Sport Manawa 2. We are 16 days out from our event. The event will be held at Pahiatua at Tararua College on the 22nd of March. starting at 6 p.m. This year we have 2 new categories, the Tararua Inclusion Award and the Grassroots Club of the Year Award. Nominations have closed. We are currently awaiting a date for our judges to meet. They have been sent the nominations. We had a record of 52 nominations this year. Yes, so it's pretty big. Yes, and that's what we have so far for the Sports Awards. So it's all full planning ahead at the moment, pretty busy. But I'm sure it'll be an amazing event celebrating the success of our community in sport and active rec and play. The other thing I just wanted to mention was our Woodville Community Day. With the Sports Awards being so close, I haven't been able to meet with the Woodville school principal as this term, sorry. They have also been very busy at the school, but we are looking to have that event at the end of this term, depending on events from schools on the school's calendar. But I would definitely like to meet with Positively Woodville before any further before any date is confirmed for this event, because I'd definitely love it to be a community-wide event, not just a school event. Those are all the highlights I have for today.
Any question?
Councillor Johns.
Thanks, Chair Ellison. Thanks, Annie, for your report. I had highlighted the Woodville community thing, but you've answered my question. There's another one, Manawatu Walking Festival. How's that advertised? Page 21, I think. Events on offer in the Tararua include the Tower Loop, but is it advertised locally in the Bush Telegraph or social media or?
I am unsure of that question. This event is not something that I hold. It is something that my colleague holds, but I can ask those questions and get back to you.
Councillor Johns, can I just clarify, because we can certainly do more to link that event if you think there's going to be interest for Tararua communities. How are we working with Sport Manawatu to advertise, socialise opportunities for events such like that? Is that the nature of your question as well? Because we can certainly do that. We're not currently, but we can look to work closer with Henekawa.
Thanks, Adele. I guess one of my concerns over the years has been that there's often talk about the ageing community and the over 65s and so on in the district, and the need to provide recreational activity and support and so on. But when you read the report, you never see anything about the need for your satisfying that end. It's all about the youth, and I don't really have a problem with that. But I know there are a lot of older people walk, and they have their own little walking groups and so on. And if there are organised events or days out to do certain walks, I'm sure a lot of them would be keen to know about it. Hence the question, I guess.
Are there any further questions? Well done. Thank you. There being none, could somebody please move and second that the Sport Tararua quarterly report be accepted? Thank you, Councillor Naima. Seconded, Councillor Peter. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. That was, and good luck with the awards. I'm sure it'll be a wonderful night. On to the management report. Must be you, Eva.
Thanks, Chair Ellison. I'm going to take this report as read, but I am wanting to walk through it with you, quite comprehensive, and make some notes on the way. We did have a question regarding the data and the way that we'd reported the facilities data in particular, and compared to the report that we had last 2 months ago. And we're looking to work on the robustness of our data. Currently with facilities bookings, it's coming in ad hoc and it's not in the same format. So we're working with customer services and IS to get a template that's going to work and allow us to be able to draw graphs from it eloquently, because we're all quite time poor, and how we can track trends over time across successive years. So you might be able to see peaks and troughs and compare that to significant events that might happen that might impact on utilisation. We have got that in place. It's not there for you yet, but we'll aim to have that so that all reporting is done in the same format for the next monthly reports. We are also, I'm going to just indicate to Grace, we are wanting to have synergy right across the board with Tararua District Council reporting, so that where we have nailed this for facilities, we're replicating it across regulatory, some of those other functions, so that you can track trends over time with everything, all data that we're reporting.
Let's look at the
So if we just walk through the CRMs that we've received, you will see quite a significant increase for the month of January. That is largely related to a lot of vandalism that we are experiencing. I just wanted to draw your attention to 3.4.3 with the response time for the team. We're looking to really work on getting those things remedied quite quickly to avoid any further unhappiness across the community. We still have yet to sort with the CRMs. We are getting multiple ones. So some of that data capture is multiple CRMs for the same thing. We're working on that in the background as well. The campground data does show that we do have an increase from this January compared to last January. So I think that just further reinforces the notion to report years against other previous years. It helps to show how we are tracking. We are increasing numbers, particularly for the month of January, across all of our campgrounds. Again, with the utilisation of bookings for facilities, we haven't been able to demonstrate progression across the year. On page 37 with the pool statistics, we have actually had a report that came in for Woodfall pool after this report was written. So that does show an increase in attendance and utilisation of that pool, roughly around 80 to 100 every day for the opening months of that pool, which is fantastic. Again, they're not real numbers that are reported, not actual numbers, sorry. So we are going to look to remedy so we get consistency of data coming in across everything. Also, the swimming that pool has been able to offer for the Woodville community, 57 children taking up that opportunity across that period, which is fantastic. So you're going to go through it all and then come back with questions, or what's your... Happy for people to try questions? Yeah. Through you, Chair Alison, to you, Dale. Can I just back up the bus to 3.7.3, the community facility bookings? Slightly concerned and worried about the Dannyburg Town Hall, and just wondering the difference between December and January. They're exactly the same figures. Was there the same sort of events that required 2 bookings that resulted in 2 weeks? It's information that we don't currently have, Councillor Wards. It's available to us, but it's not coming easily. That's why we need to work with our providers and set the platform for them, our expectations around feeding in the information to us. So you're right, having those numbers exactly the same is concerning. We are wanting to increase utilisation of all of our assets, particularly the town hall. It has had scaffolding up for the month of February to have the insides painted, which is also reflected in the report. That will have an impact on February's data when you see that in the next meeting.
Councillor Mike, you had a question?
Through you, Chair. 3.43, the vandalism on those mainly playgrounds, is it? How frequent is it? What's it costing? And can you put cameras on there?
It's very frequent, and the only frequency we can determine is what we're getting through the CRMs. I don't have that information on hand for you, Councillor Long, sorry. We also, ascertaining the cost is something we just simply don't quantify. We know what our maintenance budgets are and what our FTE allocation is for time, so we're putting those things together. And but your question around playgrounds, it's a variety of things. It's signs as well. It's toilets, light bulbs in public toilets, a whole range of things. Just regarding the vandalism at the break-in for the Ikitahuna swimming pool, we have worked with that provider. Our team actually weren't notified of that when it happened. So we've closed that loop so that we ensure that notification of such a thing comes directly through to the facilities manager in the future.
Councillor Scott.
Thanks, Chair Alison, and thanks very much for the update and giving that update for the trend data as well. I appreciate that. I was just having a look at the comment you made on 3.4.2 when we were looking at multiple CRMs. So, you know, that could distort the numbers somewhat. With that, will it be likely for the next report that we'll be able to fish out how many issues that is? And I suppose the reason I ask is similar to the trend data of if we're using this as a monitoring tool, and we don't know how many are double ups from 1 month to the next, it's really, really difficult to see, is there actually a problem or has it been reported 4 times for the same issue? So with that note, and then totally accept that there might be some work required, but it is a little bit meaningless for me when I don't know how much it's skewing those.
Yeah, absolutely fair enough, Councillor Gilmore. We are working with our customer services team. They do need to input every single customer request into that system, but we're working to understand what filters we could put in place that don't sweep all of them to the left and count. It is a work in progress, and we're working with Sandy and her team on that. Let's aim to have it for the next report though, so it's clearer for you.
Councillor Steve.
Thank you, the Chair, Ellie. Going back to what Mike was saying, there are cameras down at the domain. I'd probably ask the question, amount of money we spend on cameras, and then I know there's a lot down there because we just did the skate park exercise and also walking through there. How many convictions have we had because of the cameras or any evidence? I know trolling through live data is, yeah, costly in itself, but you do actually get the odd catch.
Yeah, you can speak to that one, Brian, so I don't know the answer.
Councillors, I'd just like to talk through one example of our cameras being successful in the district. So we had some cameras up at the Paiatua transfer station. We had been getting all sorts of break-ins and diesel stolen, batteries going on an almost weekly basis for a while. We finally got a camera up there and were able to do the police knew the person. They took the camera home with them and it was still transmitting even from their living room. So that was very helpful. We have some amazing photos, but it certainly paid for itself. And ever since we haven't had any issues, mainly because they're still incarcerated, I believe. But yeah, they were apparently out on bail at the time. So it's definitely being used in that space, and where we can, certainly where there's these things happen.
Through you, Chair Ellie, it would depend because it's the police that access that footage. If there was a camera in the area and the facilities team lodged it with the police.
Questions? I'll move on.
Yeah, you'll see that we've laid our last berm for Mangatira Cemetery. There's no more space for another berm to be laid at that cemetery, so we are working with the PMO team to look at how quickly we progress the extensions. More information will come through council for that before it happens. Again, with the leases, land leases, we're looking to tidy a lot of those up. We do have a number that are expired and wanting to get consistency and efficiencies in our systems with how we turn those around. You'll see with the community plans, Kimberly and Colin have provided quite a detailed update there with progress. They all are started except for Dannyvert, which is really helpful, all at different stages. I do particularly like the way Kimberly's reporting that progress to give you quite full understanding of where each community is at with that.
Thanks, Alison. When we had our public meeting at Northwood, we did commit to consulting with them at that when we caught up in that 3 months. So if we could just note that to Kimberly, that would be great. Thank you.
And if I just move to the end with the digital spaces, or the end of the economic end of the report, digital spaces, we are working to really invigorate that service. We've been reporting through this committee for some time on lack of utilisation or knowledge and awareness, and the ways in which we might expand that out. We have having Evan on board in the role that he's in now is really looking to socialise it with businesses, done a lot of work with the Woodville community to help everyone be aware. You will have noticed the new signs that are up in Woodville. I did want to just reinforce that that is completely fully funding, so that all of that money came from the external funder for the service, from the MB fund that provides for that service. Scott?
Thanks, Chair Ali. Sorry, just while you're on that, just to double check, one of the new signs, and I know that's outside of your was a library sign that wouldn't have been funded by MP though. Thank you.
As we get to the tail end, you're going to have Carsten in front of you shortly with some more information on the community surveys, the communication surveys. So I'll leave that information unless you've got any questions. And we're flowing through into building consents. I did see Amy in the room. If she had any questions, she's popped out. But I'll just take any further questions that you might have on the remainder of the report.
Thanks, Chair Ali. Sorry, it's a little bit of a jump back to item 5. So just economic development in general, and thank you for. Oh, sorry, this is page 44 of our papers. Was having a look through it, that the updated link that sort of showed some of the economic data, and things were looking a little bit bleak at some of the economic data that's coming through. So I guess number 5 is looking at support for existing businesses. not expecting anything now, but just wondering if we could get a bit of an update on how we're responding to some of the difficulties that might be happening, and what sort of support is appropriate to be giving, and what sort of support are we giving in that space. So I'd find really useful.
Absolutely, we can certainly provide that for the next report. Any further questions? Councillor Wallace? Oh, sorry, I thought you had your pen up. Councillor Sharon, sorry, I thought you had your pen up.
Thanks, Chair. And I'm bouncing down to the earthquake prone building section, Adele, which is for us is on page 57. I saw somewhere fairly recently Danny Verk featured in a
2 days ago.
2 days ago.
Here we go. Some sort of media. And I've encountered a few people downtown talking about, you know, the requirement for government buildings to now be at a 87% or something, 67. The percentage, the bar has gone even higher. Yeah, exactly. So I've been trying to look at these figures that are here in 9.2.1 and 9.2.3. So it would appear to me that if you take out the ones that aren't confirmed as earthquake prone, the majority of what we have left, most of those owners have been issued an extension. So we've got a big holding pattern going on, haven't we? What, in the absence of central government doing anything to change this, what can we as council, other than have these things reported to us, is there anything we could do to mitigate or educate some of the discussions that are happening around town, around, you know, I'm just going to knock this. I know one owner who got together with his mates and they're just going to knock the building down, both of them. Oh, here we go. I've got that.
Through you, Chair Ali. It is a good question, and I did hear the same because I was driving to Palmerston North at the same time, and heard the conversation. It didn't put Dannyburg in bad light. It just used it as an example of the building next to the Salvation Army building as what's going to happen to all these buildings should you know, because basically they purchased it for $50,000 and the repairs might cost $1 million. So it's just out of whack to what they can do about it. Raj will talk about what's going through the LTP in terms of the policy, but in terms of what, other than what we can do, there's not a lot really, and a lot of this is driven through government legislation. They also talked about through that same conversation what other councils, they did mention Wanganui, I noted as well, where they did have a fund initially, and then there was what was it, a heritage equip, or there was an equip fund as well that the government provided previously, but these are all gone now, and they've I think available. In my view is that there needs to be a change of legislation. Just on, I wasn't aware of the change, and it might be in terms of the importance level of a government building, might be an IL3 or 4, which would require higher, but so I wasn't too sure. Most of ours would only be there. I'm picking an IL2, can still operate the 34%. So
this owner in particular rents his facility to a health service, and he's been informed that it has to go even higher, and he was one very unhappy person.
Probably likely because of the importance level required.
Okay.
You know, the branch would take that.
Oh, councillor Peter.
Thanks, Chair. If further to that, I think there must have been an article in the Listener, I think it was.
Right.
Yeah, that covered pretty much the same fellow, the computer guy, his name, But the interesting thing that came out of that was that it's sort of in the public domain now, that the problem that small towns face. It's all very well to be in Auckland and Wellington or Hamilton or whatever, and if it costs 300,000 to fix a building, that they're getting $1,000 a week for rent, it might be justifiable. But the same building's going to cost the same money in Dannyburg that it would, 300,000. But if they're only getting $100 a week rent, it's not justifiable. So it'll destroy the town. So the headline, I think, was, it's not COVID. No, what was it?
We're going to turn the card.
No, the headline, it's not COVID that's killing the economy. It's earthquake legislation, sort of thing, or killing small towns, whatever. Anyway, no, I think it was probably a positive, as far as we're concerned, a positive discussion that was held. That the more people that know about the issues we face as small rural towns, the better. So I guess watch the space. But yeah, they've got 7.5 years to do something, and that clock's ticking faster than any of us really want. Yeah.
Absolutely agree, Councillor Peter, and I read Andy's quotes as well, and I thought with the connections here to local government, is it timely for another C4LD kind of approach with a united rural councils?
I think it is.
I do.
Right to that. So with the listener article, there probably is 5 councils working strongly together. It was a remit that was supported by local government New Zealand to work on as a whole. I guess the challenges have really come to the fore with Wellington and highlighted them. I've shared them when I met with the Minister of Rural Communities, just the impact to the community, and especially to ours, but we don't stand alone. So the last time there were 6 mayors, we all went to the minister directly and asked for some change. We didn't get everything that we wanted, but this has really come to the fore because people can't afford it. And just speaking with Mayor Helen Warboys yesterday, we've reignited it with local government New Zealand and said actually the mayors will go again to Parliament. So it's being worked on collectively together. But I actually think, whilst the impacts here heavily, it's a whole country issue now. It really is. So the costs are just out of control, and the additional challenge for us is that all our towns are on state highways, so the traffic management alone is just a figure you don't want to quote. So it is a heavy burden on businesses at the moment when times are tough.
Thank you, through Chair. Just to add to that, timeframes, I think it's two timeframes for two set of timeframes. One is the requirement to do the assessment. They've given 1 year to do the assessments, and one that done the assessments depending on the building. Priority buildings are 7.5 years, and then non-priority buildings are 15 years. And Brian touched on it. The cost to reinstate, to repair to the standard required is significant. And though council through the LTP has instructed us to come back with the remissions policy, it's not going to significantly help, but it helps one way in a sense that from our point of view, what we're doing is providing some relief through the earthquake revisions policy, but they're just relieving rates. The cost required to reinstate the building to the 67% is significant for some buildings. The other thing, just want to highlight, Mayor Tracy touched on that, is that now that tree waters and some elements have been decided, earthquake-prone building in the sector has come back as a discussion because that is looming. And I think it's the legislative changes, I think, just overshadowed that for a while. And now that that's settled, I think that's come back again for discussion to say this is the elephant in the room right now for us to address. It's just going to change the rural towns look and feel, because people are going to be walking away, and that's a challenge. So that has come back to the forefront, and I think it'll start discussions again. So hopefully, LGNZ, Taitora, and through what the Mayor Tracy is doing, I think that lobbying or the discussions at governments will take place. Don't know, but I think that's what's going to happen.
Thank you, Councillor Steve.
Yeah, for you, Chair Ellie, just while we've got you in the seat, Raj, What's the time frame? Where's the scale now? Where's the start time and where we are now and where the finish time? Have they moved it? They scaled it out, not scaled, but have they moved the pegs in the ground again? Because they said a certain date, as it says there, legislation, not the earthquake will kill us, it's the legislation that will. So they put it all in place when Christchurch had. So where are we sitting now? And time left.
To your chair, if I recall, just looking at the dates, we did put a paper in front of council, I think sometime in 2022, where we were issuing out letters to the owners that we have identified. And I think we are not phasing, we've run through the first batch of letters, so they received those letters. So those that received the letters have got a year in which they have to do what they call the assessment. And once they have the assessment, if they are shown to be earthquake prone or earthquake issues not meeting the standards, then if a priority building, they go 7.5 years. So I think we have done that, and I think we are tracking, part of the report is tracking those letters that are issued. Have they come back to us? I think the extension was provided when they have come back to us and requested for an extension. Yeah. So if, let's say, letters has been issued, all has been issued, then they've got 1 year to do the assessments and come back to us to confirm whether the buildings are earthquake issues. And then if it's yes, then if it's a priority building, they got 7.5 years to do the seismic strengthening. And if it's a non-priority building, they got 15 years.
In this year.
Separate to earthquake strength. Thanks, Charles. I just wanted to quickly jump back to page 54, item 8.10, looking at radio adverts. So this is just in the communications section. And I have heard some of the radio ads and very good. Are we using or are we asking our community radio stations to be playing ads? And if not, could we consider it? Because it's quite cheap. If we're already creating the audio, it's another avenue to be able to get our message out. So is that happening at the moment?
Thank you, Councillor Gilmore. Yep, excellent remark. This will also be highlighted in the presentation that I'm going to give about radio, so one of the things which have come out of this survey is that radio is an important means of communication, and especially community radio. So it's definitely something that we're going to be looking into. We're not doing it yet.
I can deal with those comments about the radio ads. They're fantastic. Some of the best local government ads I've heard for quite a while.
Thanks, and it'd be great if you could share the content. I haven't heard any of them, but the other one is that I've had contact from Central FM. Just, obviously they've worked incredibly with us through the cyclone and when we have water notices and things like that. And they've been trying to set a meeting up to just sort of discuss advertising. I just wondered where they considered or and who do you want to take part in that meeting? They've asked me for it, but yep. Okay. Thanks. So were they considered? Yeah.
Thanks, me, Tracy. We're really at the early stages of doing the work. Absolutely. They should be. They're well listened to in this district.
Further questions on that item? Thanks, Karsten. Page 68. That's the end of that report. Yes, could somebody please
Move the recommendation of the report be received. Thank you, councillor Scott. Second, Councillor Mike. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. So we've got Colin on the screen. Are you there, Colin? No.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully my camera will work, so you don't have to look at my still shot. Thank you for having me. Apologies for not being there in person. I'm a bit pink and I look a bit odd looking at myself, so apologies for that. Apologies for not being there today. Unfortunately, I do need to potentially flag that I will be needing to be in another call at 3:15, so Adele may pick up one of my papers to present. My apologies for that. I've been asked to present a paper around council long-standing and annual community support grants and an analysis. And I suppose this is continuing the theme of the analyses of events and funding that we did in the last committee meeting. And you'll see some of that information coming through as well in this paper. This paper does have 3 parts, and it's looking to obviously flag this as part of an assessment of next steps within the long-term plan process. But we're specifically looking at long-standing grants, and those are given to the Pukaha and 2 of our local bands, and they have different mixes within the paper outlined around the support that they have been receiving annually for a number of years. We're also looking at the areas of district annual events and increasing transparency, I would say, around those ones, so that we can have a more robust process of assessment. We have had a more robust assessment process historically, but more recently it hasn't been robust. So I'd like to obviously open that up for a transparency discussion. Obviously that transparency comes across our community boards and committees as well, and looking to remove the possibility of duplication of funding. To give one example, I know not detailed in this paper, but the AMP Showground were asked to upgrade their lighting for the Kapahaka Festival. They did go to the Dannevirke Community Board for that funding support and were successful. The AMP Show also came to the council for sponsorship support of that event, of which we didn't receive enough information to be able to meet that need and be able to truly assess it. So it wasn't actually given, but that would have been potential of 2 separate accesses to council funds. So if everyone's happy, I'd like to treat the paper as read, but obviously very interested in hearing questions and answering comments to help the further discussion.
Thanks, Colin. Does anybody have any questions of Colin? Councillor Scott?
Thanks, Chair. So I've got a few, but I'll just kick off with one. So start at the top of the long-standing grants. So I just note that there's direct support for Dannevirke Brass Band and Highland Pipe Band. I know that it seems that there hasn't been invoices coming in for a bit, but that's obviously if there was an invoice that would be paid because there was an agreement. Now, shouldn't there be a community board activity? I don't dispute the support at all, but I just wonder why that's a direct council support.
I don't know if Raj is still in the room here or not, but it's, we do have, and Adele may want to add some comment as well, but we've had a legacy support of both of those entities. One of them, I think, goes back to 1915 of that support around the instruments and insurance, etc. So this is a legacy situation that we're talking about here rather than the recently introduced setup of support. Adele, did you want to add anything more to that?
Thanks, Colin. No, I think you've hit the nail on the head. The key is that a lot of them are legacy, and we are wanting a steer from council on how we go forward in the future.
To acknowledge also that the agreement was updated 85 years later in 2001. So are there questions, Councillor Wards?
Thank you, Chair Ellison. Just a statement and then a question for you, please, Colin. Ever since I've been on the Dannevirke Community Board, I've been concerned about the potential for double dipping. And I think some of this analysis, you've obviously uncovered some of that. Thank you, Colin. But also the sense of, are we a Santa Claus really? You know, this is ratepayers' money that's going into this. And I didn't get my calculator out for long enough to work out how much Paetua, the Explore Paetua spreadsheet added up to, Colin, but I'm picking, we're looking at upwards of 100,000 in some of these grants overall, if you put the whole pot together, potentially on an annual basis. So my question for you, Colin, is are you after some sort of matrix, a decision matrix? I think we as a council need to decide, do we continue to be a Santa Claus? And B, what sort of a decision matrix might we utilise for communities to ensure that we limit double dipping and we deal with these legacies and basically a decision matrix into the future? Is that what you're expecting as an outcome from these discussions?
Yes, I'd say in part yes to that, but obviously there's three parts to this journey here in this paper, and I've tried to be as transparent and not confuse it because it's quite a long paper. So I suppose with the long-standing grants to the three organisations, keen to get your direct guidance on those three initiatives that are in place. We do, I think, historically own the musical instruments of one of the entities. And so we are technically ensuring that through our TDC insurance policy. So that one may be harder to undo if that's your wishes. But the other ones around sort of that consistency and being transparent, bearing in mind that the council has also supported Pukaha very recently with another sizable loan, if memory serves me correctly. So there's sort of consistency of annual and another piece of support that's happening there. With regards to the events and sort of transparency for the committees, you could, I suggest, package those two together if you looked at it as a transparency discussion and actually say, right, okay, how are we going to be having a better process that goes across all of these? And you could ask us to come back with an option around suggestion of that transparency process so that we can then actually say, let's consider it off of that documentation. And then operationally, we may have a better wraparound of the funding that's leaving council, that it is more robust in its wraparound and it has that sort of transparency, as I've said a few times. That would then wrap into that sort of local town support, but I think there is the anomaly of events that's identified in this paper here where they have a more of a district-wide impact and so may not naturally seamlessly sit into a Danny book or Paihia to a support program. So I feel we may also need a council transparency and assessment process where we have the larger events, like if we were ever to have a Matariki support of an event, for instance, how would that come through? So there's, unfortunately, it's a bit more wider than your simple question there, sorry.
Thank you. Dr. Scott.
Thanks very much, Chair. Ali, thanks for giving that info, Colin. Just a quick thing to mention before I kick off with my question. When we're looking at, and I certainly like having some transparency what each committee does, but I don't think that we've captured it in a like for like way. So I'm not sure if we need to work with all of the chairs to make sure that we're reporting on consistent information. The reason I say that is Explore Paetua is a full transaction list, not necessarily grants. It's the operational expenditure. It's absolutely everything. Positively, Woodville has some grants. I know it hasn't captured all of the grants. It has nothing for Mad Hatter's Day funding, Christmas, all of that kind of stuff as well. So it would be hard to use that to be basing any decision on. But I suppose my question, and I'm really glad that you mentioned it, Colin, because I think we are talking about a really large sum of money here. This isn't a small amount of money when you divide that across all of the different community boards and community committees. And my belief is that we need to have a clear plan proposal and some options on how we look at that across all of our community boards and committees. So in answer, I guess, to your first question in the paper, personally, I do support a need to create some consistency around that, with the proviso that it continues to have local voice and local influence. embedded into it somehow. But for me, this is a great start, and I appreciate the work on it. But I actually think we need to actually jump in and look at some proposals of what that might look like, and for that to address some to Councillor Wards's comments before of how much, and just one last thing on here, Colin, I think we actually need to know the totals, and I think that needs to be reported through this committee of every year how much is going to each group contractually.
Could I pick up on that point, if on some of those points? So with regards to financials that you've seen there for the 2 boards, that is easy for us to pull because that is reported back and obviously paid through direct by council. Through the Explore Pie here tour funding, seeing there that has been come through from their minutes that are online, and so that's full transparency as best that they have shared, and obviously with the now Woodville, possibly Woodville Group, they were in a period of flux, shall I say, and so their minutes online are only a certain snapshot in time. So I concur with Scott, but that Councillor Scott, that they may not be full and transparent of every single transaction that they've done there. There was another point I was going to update you on as well. There we go. With regards to the sort of transparency of dollar value, yes, obviously the total values there. I'm hearing that point from you, Councillor Scott. But at the same time, we're also looking at if we get more transparency, we may be able to guide people. It may come more refer to one of our later papers that we're going to be talking to around accessing external funding from the district rather than coming to the council. So we'll be able to encourage interaction with our community development service that's in council as well. And have those robust conversations, particularly when they're annual events.
Thanks, Colin. Councillor Johns?
My apologies. Thanks, Colin. In the sponsorship, page 72, for some time, I've, in fact, right at the start, when it was first suggested, the motocross sponsorship of what I've got $14,000, I think is, and it might sound silly coming from me, but I think it's not money well spent. That the motocross has been running for 60 years very successfully. And will continue to do so whether we sponsor it or not. And it doesn't do much for the district. The local motels are full every year. The campgrounds are full. The shops do their, those that buy at the local shop buy at the local shops, regardless of whether we put any money into it or not. Now, it might seem silly for me to say that, being from Woodville and have been involved with the motocross for years, but I think, in all honesty, for us, we're better off spending that money elsewhere to promote the district, not just in Woodville.
Picking up on that point, if I can answer it, yes, we identified that in this financial year. We have significantly backed off, and the details aren't there, but we are not supporting a contractor for that event anymore at the over $11,000 that is detailed in that financial year. We only supported the children's event there this year, and it was most probably, I need to check the figures, but in the region of $2,500, I think it was. So I can come back to the committee with an exact number on that, but it was significantly reduced, and that event organiser employed directly the contractor, removing the cost from council.
Oh, that's good to hear. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. Councillor Scott.
Thanks, Chair Ellison. Just on exactly the same as what Councillor Johns was talking about, having a look at the sponsorship part, I did note, and it sort of jumped out quite strongly, that for the 23-24 financial year, there are a huge number of zeros in that column. So wondering, for a start, does that mean that just sponsorship hasn't been paid yet, or it's a zero because there is no sponsorship in those areas? Because you've just mentioned, Colin, that council did sponsor something at the motocross, and I was lucky enough to go along to that event. But there doesn't seem to be anything reflected in that column for this year.
So the extract that's there is an exact take from the December papers, just to give you the consistency of take through of information. It hasn't been updated, so you're right, Councillor Scott. The sponsorship figure is not showing for the motocross, so we can update that, and obviously, if required and requested, bring it back to the next meeting so you can cite that information if that would be helpful. It would most probably continue to note that the Akatio fishing competition will be at zero, because that funding for that financial year was carried forward to this financial year, and the Akatio fishing competition has just happened. So obviously happy if you would like to bring that forward.
Can I just ask a really quick follow-up directly on that? Thanks, Chair Alison. Colin, yeah, absolutely. I think it's essential that that comes through from my perspective and is updated. Looking at it like this without narrative, I would be concerned that it would give a misleading viewpoint on what our sponsorship obligations are or what our plans are for the year. So I absolutely request that we have an update at our next meeting with that. Thank you.
Very fair comments and will be actioned.
Thank you, Colin. Councillor Sharon.
Thanks, Chair Alison. Colin, I have a question. I know that the Pongaroa Way to Go committee receive their little piece of the pie every year. Are they the only committee not reported here, or are there other?
Good question. I'd need to check if there are any others. Talking of that committee, and they have been in contact with me around submitting an invoice and it needing to be paid. I'm still awaiting that material to turn up to be able to action that. So I'm unsure of why it's not coming through. But I've spoken to them on the phone and it still hasn't arrived. But yes, they would be would you class them as sponsorship? I don't think it would be, but potentially it is because of obviously this sort of committees and groups that are detailed here. So it depends how far you want to go.
Yeah, it's through you, Chair Alison. I mean, their understanding is that every year they receive this nominal amount from council, and I'm just asking the question: are they the only ones that aren't included in this? Because we need to make sure we've captured all the little bits of dollars.
So it's a good point. Sorry to interrupt, Colin, but Ekatahuna, our town, is the other one that's not mentioned. Yeah, that we know of. Yeah.
So in the December paper, we were, I don't think we did have the Pongaroa Way to Go in there, but we have very transparent around the funding for information centres, and that sort of money that was going to Ekatu and our town was obviously captured in that December paper. This one was very specifically looking at outgoings and supporting of events and those kind of sort of possibilities of needing more transparency there as well, but they naturally talk to each other.
Thank you. I'll go to Sarah and then I'll come straight to you, Steve.
Through you, Chair Alison, I just wanted to give a bit of clarification around that. Those funds you're referring to are what we call our Main Street account funds. You'll have one for Pongaroa, Ekatahuna, and we also have one for Norsewood. The Paeatua and Dannyburg also have one as well. So all centres have one, and off the top of my head, I want to say it's $7,000 annually.
Yeah,
some entities like Explore Paeatua, and I think positively Woodville, just now on signing of their service level agreement, are getting these paid out at the on invoice. Main Street accounts.
So Main Street committees, just for clarification.
Main Street committees were kind of pre the days of our community committees, and they were the ones that did the beautification work around town. So does that Main Street one, for example, for Paeatua go to Explore Paeatua now? Thank you. Yeah, Tracy?
Thanks, Chair Alison. And I guess it comes back to if that's the purpose of the fund and we're giving it to them, where's the accountability that those funds are being spent for what they should be allocated to versus the sponsorship that and perhaps Santa Claus was seeing.
Good point. Thank you, Mayor Tracy. Steve?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Colin, what I would like is maybe a third column, because this is where it's all getting a bit hazy. And I think Scott and Sharon mentioned it in a way, because it's 1951 at the present time. Is it going to balloon past 3290? Or have we, I'm just trying to get my handle on, like as a district, the Tararua district, we sponsor to the tune of 40K. And this here, my lens is very hazy. I cannot put my hand on heart, and because I get a lot of people asking me, why are our rates going up and we're sponsoring everything? That's the bottom line. So we've got, and this is going back to, you know, we can't be Santa Claus. I know a lot of people would rather have no rates go up and just a little bit of sponsorship. How much is enough sponsorship? Our core business isn't sponsorship.
And I think we would concur. I'm not sure where the dollar values are coming from, but the purpose obviously is to get more transparency, and so through that transparency we can then obviously guide people into external and other funds to reduce, and we would suggest hopefully significantly reduce the burden over time that has been suggested on councils as the place to go to get support for events, to get them off the ground, to actually share that burden with the funders that are more than happy to support events and activities in our district, but need to be aware of them at the end of the day. So it's obviously us educating those committees and groups that are running these activities, if we can call them that, and continue that good work that Kimberly and I have been doing to sort of raise that awareness.
Councillor Naoma.
Thank you. I just want a bit of an understanding about the long-standing grants. What is the lifeline on them? Like, how long are we going to be doing those? And like, do we have any contractual obligations to constantly pay those out every year?
To jump in on that one, Colin. The legacy contracts, it's really up to council to make their determination for us, and then we can go in and support that. That's why we're bringing it to your attention, Councillor Chase. We're aware of it. We're wanting to understand what council's view is for what we do.
Thanks, Adele. It kind of sounds like we almost need a workshop on this at some stage. Just a thought. Another paper, yeah.
Yeah, it needs to be a transparent conversation.
I'm sure, yeah.
Just regarding the Main Street grants, I think positively Woodville was a good opportunity for us to create some parameters within the agreement for what each of the 3 funding lines that go into that committee can be used for, and what information gets reported back to council on the spend. That agreement, we're looking to use that as the exemplar and apply that same logic across the other committees. So it is coming. We've only just started.
Thanks, Adele.
That's. Oh, okay. We're going to go back to the resolutions now, don't we? Crikey. Okay. I've gone to 69. Okay, thank you. Right, so the recommendations are that the report from the team leader Economic and Community Development dated the 9th of February 2024 regarding long-standing and annual community support grant analysis be received. Moved by Scott, seconded by Steve. All those in favour, please say aye. And the next part is that the council consider the long-standing and annual program of community support grants presently in place, inconsistencies of processes and offer advice around future commitments. Yep.
Thanks, Chair Ellison. Wonder if I can move a slightly amended motion for this. It would read the same, but it would be that council requests a report, and a report from officers considering the long-standing. So it carries on from there. So personally, I don't think we have enough information to be considering that. So whether we need to do that as a motion or just leave that motion, I'm happy to take advice on, but I think we need another paper resolution. Cool. So yeah, so that
Is around, is it in place?
Yep.
And consistency in the processes and offer guidance around future commitments.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we have a second, please? Councillor Nyama? All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. And then we have that the assessment around the next steps is built into the long-term plan process.
I think that we, sorry, do you mind if I
Go for it.
Thank you, Chair Ali. I suggest we don't move that motion. I think that we've got enough for those two motions that we've already done, so I would suggest we don't move it.
1.3. Adele? Okay, thank you. So that completes the this report, isn't it? Yeah, you can actually catch a breath. Next to, oh, crikey. Right, so we'll move on now then to the next paper is digital trailers. No, out. Page 79. Yep. So 8.5, community funding database product review. So Colin's going to speak on that in Kimberly's absence.
Kimberly sends her apologies. She's not feeling too well today. So Kimberly's written a paper here on the community funding database and product review that Adele, I and Kimberly have been working through for a little while now. There's been I suppose I could put it, some appetite to actually assist our community groups and also actually the council as well with accessing external funding for activities, whether that be the project management office or facilities projects, for instance, in council, but also our community groups that we're already supporting, enabling them more the community. Obviously internally there's myself and Kimberly to enable them and assist the staff, but externally so they can actually sign up to a product, access the information that's there, that it's live, it's accurate, and giving them opportunities to access funding. So that's an extension, yes, of the service that we presently offer, but actually most probably a refreshing of the service that is presently offered in our libraries, which is via Generosity. The report does say that we have reached out to Generosity and haven't been provided with stats. Those have come through since this paper has been provided for January and February stats. If memory serves me correctly, we had 2 unique users in January and February of that product, and most probably searched for about 6 funds. I couldn't tell you which one did more of the searching, or if they were even, or even if it was 2 separate individuals, or if it was the same individual that logged on independently twice. But it is not a heavily utilised tool within our library service at the present time. So we have reached out to other suppliers to do an assessment of those providers, being Grant Guru, Strategic Grants, Funding HQ, and Generosity NZ as our present provider. And we have provided a paper here of the journey of assessment that we have worked through with Adele, and an outcome that is proposing the moving forward with Grant Guru and the removal of the service once an exit notice is worked through with Generosity. The new annual subscription for that is imminently due to start. I think there's an invoice for May potentially on its way. I know it says April in the paper, but that's where what I've seen on that sort of conversation anyway. So significant assessment has been put into these 4 products. I'm very happy to talk around those assessments, the reach outs we've done to other councils who are using some of these products for our sort of assessment and case studies, to understand their usage, and in some instances why they're ceasing using some of the products that we have decided not to move forward with as well, through underutilisation or complications, etc. So I'm happy to take questions, treat the paper as read, but very conscious there's a lot of information in there to work with.
Thank you, Colin. Mayor Tracy.
Thanks, Chair Ellison. I was just wanting to check in if generosity being available at the library is one tool that students have for all scholarships. Is that replicated in any of the other service providers?
So the license that the council has is to provide that tool generosity through the libraries. It is not extended out via any payment that council makes to other entities, but I couldn't answer if, say, youth services has it in their building.
I think, sorry, my question was, so if
Sorry.
you're a student, whether
Mhm.
being at school or at university or studying, Generosity has access to all of the grants that are available through the country for different parts. And I just wondered if that part of it was replicated in any of the others.
Yeah, so Grant Guru and those tools also hold all of the information of all grants available to anyone living within this district. It will be functioning down in the Grant Guru example to the funds that are applicable for people in this district rather than looking at a national approach. Obviously, if people are looking to study in Christchurch, etc., then we can make further investigation. But I would like to think we'll be looking to support students who are trying to travel local, study local in the first instance.
I think probably when I refer to that, so students studying tertiary can apply to a grant for people that are studying in, specialised. So it might be science, and that's where I understand it is just that national level of grants. Thank you.
So we can talk and work with Grant Guru on the filters that are applicable for our district. And so if there's a definitive need for that at a tertiary level, then yes, we could build that in.
Thank you, Colin. Councillor Scott.
Thanks very much, Chair Ali, and thank you very much for this paper, Colin, and to Kimberly and to Adele. It's one I've been really looking forward to digging into, and I've enjoyed the analysis on it. Having a look at Grant Guru, which does appear to be a really good product, and you've obviously used it a lot more, and I've had a bit of a play on some of the council websites, the other councils. Looks great. It's obviously more expensive for more features, but I suppose because the features are so much greater than Generosity, I'm wondering what the impact this product will have on the required staff effort currently in the grant space. So my hope would be that it is much superior to Generosity, that it would have an impact on staff required effort. I'm just wondering if there's been any of that analysis looked at as well.
Yeah, so there's definitely been some analysis around that staff impact, staff need to support, and that's why Grant Guru is significantly stood up against the other products. The Grant Guru products allows people to set up their own individual accounts. They can get email updates direct to their service. So other than promoting and maybe taking people on a first guided tour through, Grant Guru enables people to be enabled. That enablement also doesn't come at an additional user cost. If we look at the product strategic grants, you would need to buy X amount of licenses and then heavily promote and heavily sign up each individual user, a lot of council staff and time to monitor who's in, who's using it, who's not. The minimum number of licenses we would be able to buy with a strategic grant product would be 50. And then obviously you would need to monitor and fill that 50, otherwise we're wasting ratepayers funding. So we're enabling a product that is actually good for staff time and good for the community at the same time.
Colin, Councillor Johns.
Chair Ellison, when I read the report, I was prepared and still am to accept the work that you and Kimberly have done to assess the three options. And if you've come up with that as being the best option for us, I'm more than happy to move the recommendation.
Peter, do we have a seconder? Councillor Mike. Any discussion, further discussion? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Colin. But
Thank you.
don't move.
I'm not going to move, but I will say my phone may ring in 4 minutes time or 5 minutes time, so my apologies.
That's fine. Adele's ready to take over. That's fine. Thank you. So we're now item 8.6, digital spaces.
So, digital spaces trailer. I think we are most probably overdue an update to councillors and elected members generally around what's been happening in this space. And I'm conscious that there's probably be some questions. We've called it the digital spaces trailer. We are very transparent in this paper that it is dual government funded through the amendment of the agreement for the digital hub that's down in Woodville. We are still running the bricks and mortar digital hub down in Woodville. Please don't think we're stopping and moving forward just with the trailer. But it has also been funded through DIA and the recovery side of things. So hence you'll see through this paper that the trailer is being built to be multifunctional, so that it can also carry out some of the digital work that we're looking to do and mobilise that offering to our business community, and that may answer some of future gazing questions from Councillor Scott around the support of existing businesses. It'll be future support of existing businesses. We'll be able to identify through that as we're in Eka Tahuna, Pahiatua and out into our rural communities. The trailer is also being fully functioned to be self-contained, so it will have solar panels, water tanks, a kitchen, etc. in it. So in a civil defence emergency, we can roll it out and be fully functioning for our recovery functions and processes that are required there. I'd like to open the floor for questions, just so I can support Adele if that's applicable.
No, that's fine. Thanks, Colin. Councillor Johns.
Thanks, Chair Alison. I'm probably the biggest cynic in the room, but I doubt, in fact, my personal feeling about this paper is I doubt its efficacy in due course, but the only way to find out is give it a go, and it's not our money, and happy to move the recommendation.
We've got another couple of people who'd like to speak. If you'd like to, if we can just wait, please, Mike, you would like to say something.
Through you, Chair, I think it's brilliant that you can use it dual purpose and also for civil defence and emergency. Great, particularly if it's really up to speed with the communication. Thanks. Good on.
Thanks, Councillor. Might go to Councillor Scott.
Thanks, Chair Ali. I'll just fire out just a couple of questions because they're related. You might be able to answer them in one go. Question one, what's the total cost? And I know Councillor John said we're not paying for it, but we are just through a different fund as taxpayers. So what is the total cost? What is the cost to council after 2 years? You're talking about how we've got funding for 2 years. So what's the projected ongoing costs from that time? And then just my third question, it looks like you've worked really hard to be able to get funding from different funding sources. Are we 100% confident that the way that it's described that it'll be used meets that funding criteria? So they're my three questions.
So meeting funding criteria, 100% it will meet all the funding criteria. My apologies, my phone's ringing. I do need to get this, very sorry. So funding it will meet. It'll also meet all of the other needs. About half of the rolling costs will be there for ongoing, so insurance and general maintenance. I'd suggest maybe a 5K maintenance will need to be held. I'm sorry.
Right, Colin. That's right. You go, Colin.
You go, Colin.
That's right. Thank you, Colin. Adele.
This is a tricky question.
But I think you're right. Our gaze has only been ahead 2 years. And we actually do need to do the work to look beyond that to understand the total running costs and any damage that might incur for that trailer while it's out and about. We don't have all of that information yet. But what we can commit to is the team continuing to source external funding to help to remedy some of those issues. We are working with Dave Watson on that because it is a vehicle that is going to sit in the fleet alongside of everything else that Dave manages. So ring fencing that money that he can put towards ensuring it's warranted, registration is current, all of those things, and any remedies that we need for the technology we'll be working with IS around. But you're right to point that out, Councillor Gilmore. We haven't looked beyond the 2-year period, and we do need to account for that. That is, if that figure's not in the report, I'll have to get it to you. I can confirm it absolutely is completely funded from that external fund.
Thank you, Adele. Councillor Sharon.
Thank you, Chair Alison. A little bit of what I'm going to ask was answered by that response, Adele. So the capital cost, I appreciate that the theme that's coming through here, it's not our money, but I'm with Councillor Scott, it is our money. And I'm, delighted, Councillor Mike, you think it'll be a great backup in a civil defence emergency, so long as we can get it there. And that goes to my question. When the Tararua PHO built a trailer to go and do health service delivery out in the rurals, they had to go and buy an appropriate vehicle to tow it. So I'm hoping that in the specs within this, that's already been considered and we have that out there ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. We have, Councillor Woods. We've worked with Dave. We do have a vehicle in the fleet that's capable of towing it.
Matt Tracy.
Thanks. I'd just like to expand on that because some of those, and I guess I'll give a live example. So I was towing the play trailer into the south, and Dave helped me one day get that on, and then he pointed out that my vehicle wasn't at that towing capacity. So you are talking a ute, you are talking something that's out of our fleet on a regular basis, but I don't know that we've covered the fuel, and I can't think of any funder that's going to cover fuel plus those vehicles. We don't have utes lying around in the fleet. So I just wanted to clarification on that. And the other one is that we do have a meeting with Minister Mitchell for Civil Defence, and just if we've got any dates and timelines, obviously this has been ordered, and that I'd like to offer that for him to launch.
Thanks, Matt Tracy. I can answer 2 of those. We're working with Dave from the start on this, so he has ring fenced one of the utes for that. The operational, I apologise if let me go back. Regarding the operational costs with the fuel, this asset is going to sit alongside the digital spaces activity, which the economic development budget covers. So what I'm saying is every time that vehicle is booked out to use, the costs incurred with booking that out will be associated to that activity, which we have budgeted for. And I think it's our intention to really maximise the outreach opportunities for council services out into communities to make things a bit more accessible. We've recently had conversations around dog registrations and how we might look to have an FPOS facility within there that's linked to our payment systems for things like that, dog registrations, just to try and make it more mobile. Oh, and here comes Colin back. Good save.
Sorry, thank you.
Councillor Steve and then Mayor Tracy.
Yes, thank you, Chair Ellison. Yeah, Colin, going back to what Councillor Scott was saying, the bottom line is how much is this trailer? 200K, 300K?
My apologies, that's the one I didn't answer, so my apologies. So the total budget that we have from DIA and NB from DIA is 50% of the trailer build. The NB money is more fluxed because it has connection to the overall offering of the digital hub in its bricks and mortar and trailer form, just for clarity. The total trailer budget that we set aside was $150,000. Post-COVID, that is obviously prices that have gone up, and that's we are well inside that build cost at the moment, so we should have money still set aside to be able to fit out more of the internals, so it actually isn't just a trailer that is perfectly finished with all the AV and all the seating and everything in it. We might be able to actually fit things in there so that we can actually have it, I don't know, chairs, those kind of things. Well, from the imagery you may have seen there, and I digress, the AV that's going to be in there, you're going to have screens facing out on the trailer, so that it's fully functional for people to engage in a civil defence or even an outdoor cinema setup for A&P show, for instance. And it'll also have internal TVs and be able to connect to Starlink, as well as have its own rural broadband facility on there as well. So 150k is the budget set aside for the build. As you've seen in the paper, we've set aside the money for the 2 years of costs and a contingency if there's anything that untowards happens. Councillor Scott, I don't know if I answered your question fully enough or succinctly enough, or maybe I did, around ongoing costs and the potential of those. Please ask if I haven't.
I've patched a bit of that up, Colin. I'll fill
Thank
you in
you.
later.
My apologies.
Just to supplement, end date, supply date, drop date.
So we were aiming for the end of March for that to be on the road and fully functioning. We have delays from the freight shipping issues around the world at the moment. So we're just waiting for 2 items to come in from Australia. May push it out to an early to mid-April delivery.
Thank you.
Tracy?
Thanks, Chair Ellison. So if I'm speaking with the Minister this afternoon, what date would be appropriate to give him or offer?
I would offer mid-April, and then we've got some contingency factored in there if there's any untowards that happen.
Thank you.
Can we seek some advice on how we might open? We might talk to you about that, me and Tracy, how we look to open this launch. Yeah, that's the right word.
Yeah. I thought it's a great opportunity to get Minister Mitchell here to the district to have a look at the damage, and especially if half the funding has come from recovery, especially to highlight how that's being used.
Thank you. Colin, did you have anything more to add?
No, apologies for having to duck in and out.
It's no problem. Okay, so move on then. So that actually now we need to approve that report. That's everybody's. Oh, sorry, Councillor. Oh, okay. The recommendation, seconded by Councillor Scott. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. So now we move to 8.7, communications survey. Karsten, welcome back to the table.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm fully aware that it's been a very long day for you. So I'll try to give you a high-level overview of the communication survey that we did. But before I do that, and before we go into the results or the outcomes of the survey, I'd just like to give you a bit of a background. Why do we do this? One of the big reasons is because communications is changing so fast nowadays. We're living in the digital age. Information is literally at people's fingertips. It's coming in fast. People want timely replies. And at the same time, there are also people that are being left behind. So there is that gap. And we have to cater for those both groups, and we have to understand those both groups. So that's one reason. The other reason is that in 2021, we commissioned a communication survey, and the communications, did I say survey? I meant strategy. So we commissioned a communications strategy, and the communications team has been moving elements of this forward. And just one note about this strategy, it was done based on an internal review. So, and I believe some of you were part of this review, and based on that review, a strategy was developed. There were no residents involved in setting up this survey. Now, that was done intentionally, I believe, And one of the recommendations that came out of this, out of the review and the strategy, was to proceed and with a communications survey, which we've done now. One of the other reasons why we're doing is because we're a relatively new team. There's been a lot of changes in our team, and we're keen. We want to hear fresh ideas. We're keen to move into a new direction. And last but not least, I've been asking around whether we've actually asked our community what they think of council communications and whether we've ever done that. And I don't think we ever have, not to my knowledge. Maybe some people that are here in this room can correct me on this, but I don't think we've done that before. And I think it's extremely important if we want to set out a new direction. So all in all, no big surprises have come out of the survey. A few small surprises, but you know, sometimes it's good to have things to reiterate what you already think. So just going into the objective of the survey is to find out how the community has experienced our communications, and at the same time finding out how we can change, how we can adapt, how we can tweak, and how we can adjust our comms. It's also important to realize that the comms team is now a level of service as part of the LTP, and as part of that, we need robust data. And this is the first step towards that, to get robust data so that we can performance measure ourselves in the future. So this is the first step towards that. Right, a few details about the survey. So the survey was conducted between the 5th of December and it ended on the 12th of January. The survey was an online survey, which was conducted on SurveyMonkey. However, we advertised it in the Bush Telegraph. It was in the Bush Telegraph, and people could come to our service centres if they printed it out, and they could drop it off. And it was also pushed out on our social media. The survey consisted of 32 questions. There were some general questions around where people got their information from and also where they get their council information from. Below every question was a comment box where people could put in suggestions. We had 149 respondents to the survey. All of them were online. So now I'm going to go to the results of the survey. This is broken up into 4 parts. So first of all, we're going to look at where people generally get their information from. And then we're going to look at some of the council information. So we're going to look at where people get their information from regarding if they want to hear from council. And then we're going to look into some of the suggestions for improvement, which we collated. And then we're going to look at what the comms team is going to do about it. Demographics of the respondents. 50% of the respondents came from Dannevirke, and there was a fair sprinkling of the other respondents throughout the district. The ethnicity, most of the people that took part in it were New Zealand European, and with 77%, and only 15% were Maori. Now that is way below the average in our district. So that's certainly something that we need to keep in mind and something that we need to work on. Now, if we look at the age, there's also a few small surprises for me here. For me, the biggest surprise was the 65+ one. 17% of people that are 65 plus and above took part in this survey. Like I said before, they were all done online. 17% is also the average of our district population, I believe, of people above 65 plus. So maybe people of 65 plus are more digitally agile than we assumed.
Not all of us are left behind.
No, that wasn't
Okay, and one that really stands out is the people below 16 years old, that no one took part in the survey. And between 16 and 29%, only a little bit more than 8% took part in this survey. Now, and this is also something that we really need to work on. So the largest group was between 45 and 65 years old, and that also happens to be the largest population group in our district. So that sort of makes sense. So, moving on to the graph, where do you mostly access your information? So by far the most people that took part in the survey, excuse me, said they got their information from social media. Just breaking that down a bit, 96% said they got this from Facebook. 31% they used Instagram. Now, these do not equate to 100 because there were multiple options there. They could choose from Snapchat, they could choose from Facebook, they could choose from all the other social media platforms which were out there. Internet was also a big one with 64%. And just breaking that down a bit, a lot of people, apparently get their news from Stuff and from the New Zealand Herald. A bit of a surprise there was to see that the newspaper was only at 5.3%. Not a lot at all. And just breaking that down, 100% of that 5.3% was the Bush Telegraph. And then 50% of the respondents said that they got the Hawke's Bay Today. Not so much a surprise for me, but radio was also chosen here. I think this is a really, and we also briefly touched on this before, I think this has a lot of potential. So people actually rely on this. 7% of the respondents rely on this for the information, but I think there's a much larger group out there where it's sort of in the background, you know what I mean? It's there. Yeah, so don't really solely rely on it for the information, but it's there. And this is something that the comms team is now moving into, is into radio ads. Part of the people that responded that they relied on radio, almost half of them said that they relied on Dannyvirk radio. And the other half of them was Central FM. Sorry, I stand corrected. 27% of the people said that they relied on Radio Dannyvirk, 36% on Central FM, and the other people relied on radio stations such as Coast FM, More FM, ZB Talk Radio, and iHeart Radio. Moving on to the next graph. But where do you mostly access council information? Again, social media jumps out. So with about 60%. What I find interesting here, if you remember the previous graph about the Bush Telegraph, only 5% of the people say that they rely on the newspaper, but when they ask about council information, it's actually up to about 15%. So that could mean that they probably actively seek out the Bush Telegraph to get their council information from. Some people rely on the website, some people rely on word of mouth, and 2% of the respondents, that equates to about 2.5 people, rely on Teno. Moving on to the next page. So we're going into a little bit more depth now. So going into the Bush Telegraph, this is about the council page in Bush Telegraph. So the question was, what interests residents mostly in our Bush Telegraph page? And general information was the one which was ticked off the most. General information would normally consist of event information, educational articles, and general news items.
Just going back to that previous page, I see you've got the New Zealand Herald as an option for newspapers. I didn't believe the Herald was available down here. It's mentioned here, but only online, yeah. I mean, I get the Post, and I would say most people, and if they're buying a newspaper, it's either the Standard or the Post in Paitoa, or Wekatahuna. Certainly not Hawke's Bay Today or the Herald. But there are obviously not many southern ward. I mean, over 50% were all Dannevirke people anyway. Yeah, so I guess this part shows it. Yeah. Okay.
Peter, yeah, so the New Zealand Herald is it's the internet newspaper that people are referring to here. Another interesting thing about the Council Bush Telegraph page is even though 15% of the people say that they rely on the Bush Telegraph for their council information, 84% of the people are aware that council has a page in it, which shows that a lot of people they might not choose to refer to the council page and refer to other means to get their information from. Okay, moving on to Facebook now. So what interests people the most on our Facebook page? It's again, general updates. These could, as examples, we're given water updates, general council news, and recycling information. Just as a side note, we also asked whether people found our Facebook page useful. 67% of the people found our Facebook page somewhat useful, and 33% found it very useful. Nobody said it was not useful. Okay, moving on to our internet site. As you will see, people are generally interested in very practical things here. Fees, rates information, roads, and recycling. Those are the most visited pages on our website. Okay. Now, under each of the questions that were in this survey, there were comment boxes, and we've tried to collate some general themes which came out of them. So one of the things that people suggested for improvement was to use less difficult language, less jargon, and use more graphics to convey information. There were also a lot of comments made that people did not get emailed back or called back by council staff. Now, I believe that this is not so much a communications team issue, it's a council-wide issue that people are referring to here. A lot of comments were made about the timely delivery of information. People pointed out that often information appears on community pages first and then hours later on the council pages. People also pointed out that they wanted more transparency about what's happening to their rates and that they wanted us to take a less positive spin on certain things. One thing, and for me, this was perhaps one of the biggest lessons of this survey, is that people pointed out that they want to be kept up to date about the outcomes of all our surveys, consultations, and engagements. We're not doing this enough. And this is definitely something that the comms team wants to work on. People also very much value, the respondents very much value face-to-face interaction with councillors and council staff and with the mayor.
Really be keen to investigate some of this a little bit more, because this is the first time, we're sort of seeing that, but actually we can't address it unless we dig down and understand. Good, but I do get that complaint, that people don't get back, but yeah, it's a generalised one, but it would be good to understand.
Not to point the finger or anything, but I believe there were 2 or maybe even 3 remarks from people made that they got the address from councillors from the website, tried to contact them, and nobody responded back. Yeah, so.
This review, Alison. Of the 149 out of about 20,000 or 19,500, there's not many. Statistically, what confidence limits were used in that to get to that? In other words, statistics, if you want to take a sample size, you've got to set, if you want to be plus or minus 10%, you might say at 20,000, we need to go to 1,850. If you know.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying, 149, with the figures we've got here, to what extent can we rely on them having any real value? Just for the price matter and the
I don't know. But what I do know that this is the first time that it's been done, and that it gives us some sort of gauge on what people think about us and how they get their information from. I'm also very much aware that the findings of what we have asked here, that they greatly differ from our previous performance measures and how they were measured as part of the LTP. So I guess there's an element of subjectivity in every survey. I don't really know how to answer that question properly, but it's a fair point.
Chair Ellison, I think it's a snapshot, but when you look at a Coleman Brunter sort of survey, there are only 1,000 people, these 5 million New Zealanders, and the accuracy of those are give or take 3 or 4%. So I think in terms of the percentage wise, we've probably got a reasonable percentage out of it, because all of the surveys prior to election are only 500 to 1,000 people surveyed, including our community surveys, I think between 200 and 500, if that sometimes as well.
Even statistical tables.
I think you raise a valid point, Councillor Johns. If we continue to do this, the hope is that we will get more uptake from more of our populations over time if we spread it far and wide. So we're starting and we'll continue. But you're right, our results may not be statistically significant because of our small sample size.
And to put things in perspective, some of the results of our previous consultations were also not very high.
Tracy.
Apologies, Councillor Franklin. I need to probably just go and prep for the Zoom with the minister. So my apologies.
Off you go. Thank you, Tracy.
Okay, so what, apart from some things which we really take into heart to work into our strategic direction, there's also been a lot of operational suggestions which have come out of this, which we want to address. And I could go through the whole list of them here, but I don't think this is the time and place to do it. I'd just like to keep it very general. So people want quick information. They want it to be timelier. They want us to respond more to comments on our Facebook. They want us to do that more. They also, about our Facebook, also said that it's rather heavy-handed, meaning that they want us to lighten the load a bit more humour in there maybe, or a bit more, some good news stories. It's boil water notices, road closures, it's all this heavy stuff. So, and we are very much aware of this. Okay, our website, a lot of people, quite a few respondents, they complained that they've had difficulties in finding what they're looking for. Overall, people were positive about the website. They said that it has improved a lot, but there's certainly, especially in user friendliness, there is scope for improvement, and the comms team is going to work on that. For the Bush Telly, people said they want more project information and, like I said before, more information on where rates are being spent. And people actually said about the Bush Telly, it's not the best way to communicate. So what is the comms team planning to do? We have taken some of the suggestions to heart. We would like to invest more of our time and resources into digital communications, but that does not mean that we're going to forget about print communications. We will scale it. We have scaled it down a bit. As you know, our Bush Telegraph is now being published on a fortnightly basis, but it's still very important that we keep this. One of the most important lessons learned for me during Cyclone Gabriel was that you can't exclude one channel of communication. You have to do it all, and we will do it all. It's just a matter of where we prioritize, where we put it, where we have our priorities. We have at the moment a large quality improvement project, or we have a quality improvement project which is up and running. So we're trying to update our 397 pages of our website. We're working on our search function, which is becoming more user-friendlier. We're also at the same time putting Te Reo Māori into our website and doing a number of other things so that we make it more user-friendly for people. I would really applaud us to move into the direction of doing more payments and other actions online. I think that would be a great thing, and the comms team would be very keen to work together with Mike, IT, and the other customer services and the other teams within council to expand this. As I said before, a lot of people in our district, they access the information through social media. Instagram was one that they mentioned, and there's a large amount of people that use Instagram. We do not have Instagram. So now, and this falls a little bit back on whether we're capable of doing so, but we really need to assess whether we want to branch out in this direction. And that would also perhaps enable us to tap into that group of people, which we are not tapping into at the moment. There's also a number of actions which we need to do here within council. So the comms team needs to become more active in going to other team meetings to know what's going on. And this is also so that we can get that timely information out there. so that we know exactly what's going on. Another thing which we've learned through the survey is that a lot of people are accessing sites like Stuff and the New Zealand Herald online to get their information from. So that means that we have to be more proactive in sending out media releases to these people so that we can amplify our messages through them rather than through our own channels. Or besides our own channels. And one of the most important thing is that we use the outcomes of this survey to measure ourselves next year when we do the survey again, so that we have baseline data, because we've never had that before. So the conclusion of this all, it has led to some really interesting insights. It's been a snapshot of what's been going on in terms of communication within council and how people get information. And for us, for the comms team, it has allowed for some really interesting strategic insights, but also operational insights. Thank you.
Just before we wind this up, Councillor Scott has a question.
Thanks very much, Chair Ellie. Carsten, thank you very much. A really great comprehensive report, which I really enjoyed reading. Really good to see and to learn that we do have an older communications strategy there. I do note that many councils around the country have a council or governance adopted communication strategy, and you know, I've really enjoyed us sort of going through this, and I think it would be helpful for comms, for us as a governance team to be really clear with direction, which actually helps your team kind of work through this and actually work to a really clear strategy that we've all got. So as part of this work, and I'm not sure of the best way to progress that, maybe that's an offline sort of discussion, but I would love to see this work kind of grow into a council adopted communication strategy that then we can work to and we all agree with. So but I'm really grateful for the work that you've done, that snapshot. Nothing in there particularly surprised me, which was good. But I'm already enjoying seeing, you know, the top class post I saw was when we had one of our comms team admit recently that they made a mistake on Facebook, and that was human and it was absolutely perfectly done. It was top class. So just commend your team for that as well. But yeah, just wanted to highlight that I'd like to see this kind of become something that us as governors are really looking at and buying into as well.
Thanks, Councillor Scott, and I endorse those comments and completely. And the one comment I would make is I think we need to make sure we get Facebook right before we worry too much about Instagram. Let's nail Facebook, I think. And if anyone's got any suggestions of how we can get stuff to fix their website, because it's a disaster. It's just hideous. I hate using it now. It's not a joy at all. So, Sharon.
Thank you, Alison. Great work, Carsten. There were some themes there that I was a little surprised at, but I'm pleased to hear that within the team you're looking at some improvements. When people think about comms out of the council, they don't necessarily departmentalise comms from customer services. And so I'm curious to understand, is there some, you know, I've asked here the question, what's the relationship with customer services? Because they're a conduit of communication, which could be enhanced both ways from what I'm understanding. Nothing annoys me most than not getting a response when you've asked something. Now, whether or not it's gone to comms on a Facebook or whether or not it's gone to customer services or through the website as a CRM, what thinking is going on within the team and in the organisational structure? Because it's a wider question to try and address that. I mean, it's going to take effort from everyone to be able to nail that so those comments don't come up next time you do the survey. So what behind the scenes to address that? Yeah, I mean, you're in an even separate building from. So I'm trying to understand, when I saw that comment, I thought, so what are Harry and Karsten doing about this? And their bosses further up, whether it gets incorporated in that common strategy, but that's a missing link that we really have to nail.
Yeah, I fully agree. And you are right, especially with the digital age and rada, which I said, the comms team, the customer services role of the comms team is growing and growing. And at the moment, rather than sporadic meetings with the customer services team, nothing constructive is happening in this space. But that doesn't mean that it will not happen. So, and it's definitely something that we need to think about, Councillor Wards. It's because I think it's really important. As a side note here, in the past, customer services was responsible for Facebook, for the comments that came in. Yeah, and for reasons unknown to me, I wasn't working here at the time. That changed somehow. Maybe Steph, maybe you know why that changed.
Yeah.
So, but 100% here, I'm with you on this one. Something larger has to happen regarding this.
Thanks, Karsten. I think we need to wind this up now because we've still got another 2 papers to go. So I'm really aware of the fact that it's been a very, very long day for everybody. So could somebody please move the recommendation that report from communications team manager be received? Move Steve, seconded Scott. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thanks, Karsten, very much. Excellent report. Thank you. You're on, Mike. Mike, you're on the mic.
Chair, really, I have to go, so I'll go before we start.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Steve. Thanks for your input today.
Thank you, Chair, councillors. Here to report on the capital program here. I can tell that it's been a long day and the numbers have dwindled, but I'll carry on and I'll take the report as read. As you can tell, going through it though, that we have some sort of risk to some of the projects within the scheduling and some within resourcing. But if we were to consider the graph that is at 5.1, we can tell again that our projects majority within this portfolio are green and are progressing well. And again, this follows our normal project management framework where we're going to focus on some of the ones that perhaps aren't on track as well as they should be, or that are of key interest to councillors. So if there's no questions up to 5.1, I'm happy to start on 6 and step through. So off the bat, we have the Carnegie, so we're working through a framework there, and we'll have the heritage assessment being drafted at this current stage, which will inform our consent application going forward. I would like to touch on Waihi Falls Toilet there, that we have had $110,000 as agreed and approved in principle from TIF funding for this. You'll see in there that we've had 26 to 66,000 as subject to scope adjustments. So that is whether or not we look at removal of the old facility that is there and whether or not we include that in the scope of this project. I'd like to make certain though here that it is a hold point with us right now, and that we're not actually progressed, or we don't have any sort of thing to carry on with this at this current stage. We've just been approved at the funds at 50%, which was at the time 110,000. What we've done though is we've refreshed a bunch of the quotes and we've come back at 136,000 as to what it would cost to put a new one in. So that's where that one is, and that's where that is going to hold at this point until we receive further direction as to how we want to proceed with that. The other ones there was worth touching on from my point of view have been the new Paitoa pool. We met with them, and again, it's just at the shortfall of funding, and we've had a chat about what that looks like, and that they are understanding that their is going out for consultation as their last request.
Just ask a question on that, Mike. With the building consent due to expire at the end of a year, are there any levers we can pull to mitigate that? Could we go and start digging some holes or something so that it looks like the project's begun? Because that's a huge cost to have to go right through that process again. Is there any way around that?
That is essentially the gist of it. If you were to go and start construction, then that would continue, but funding would be a key factor in this.
Thanks for that, Mike. I'm just follow that with Bush Aquatic Trust.
Further to that, though, the Bush Aquatic Trust did mention that the existing Paitoa pool has seen a heavy amount of use since it was actually reinstated. So, commensurate, they've done like 100, 200 people through a day, so they were very happy with that. We've heard about the cemetery extensions. Mitchell Guile here has been doing the MPI projects there. He's currently away, but those are his reports, and everything's progressed well on those ones. We've had 2 handovers. So one of the handovers as well was for Waihi Falls Toilet, which was to Eugene Priest, and the district town signage is over to Mark Ellingham. So we're working on that. We've ripped up all the documentation, and we're enabling Mark to actually carry on with that project.
Thanks, Chair. Ali, Mark isn't here, but I guess I would be remiss of me not to mention this in one of these meetings, because I mention it in every community committee meeting. The district town signage, or the lack thereof in some of our places, is becoming more and more of an embarrassment. It's something that I get asked about frequently. And I wonder, Mike, I know that it's only just sort of swapped where that sits, but if I could request an actual update, some sort of written update, at least in our next agenda. So every meeting that I have in Woodville, I give an update on that, but I get questioned on it at least weekly. And I think it does our reputation as a council. It certainly doesn't enhance it. So I'd like us to just to make sure we're staying really focused on that.
Yeah, for sure. No, we can work on that. I mean, that's where we're at this current stage, and we're just working through exactly what the schedule looks like and working out all the necessary pieces to actually continue and deliver this project. Further on those ones, or would you like me to step through into the project sheets?
Step through the project sheets. Yeah.
With the building area capacity project, that's been going quite well. We've been meeting with the regular meetings with both iwi as part of the Better Off funding. They've managed to create a couple of new hires, and we've been working on training opportunities with them both. And we're looking also at a iwi portal log into some of our project management framework software so that we can enable them to have better input and quicker, faster turnaround for their input into the resource management areas. A highlight of the digitisation of council records and introduction of e-services. So again, we have just been, going back one for all of these, we actually also managed to hire Sue Lawrence. She's our new project manager. I'd like to introduce her to you at the next one of these committees. And she's the one that's developed all of these sheets. She's local to Kumaroa and has a vast amount of experience in varying different projects across New Zealand even. So good to have her on board, and she's been working hard at doing this for the last few weeks. So the digitalisation project here, she's been working through this. The e-services part is one that she'll be looking at putting out to market, and the digitisation is ongoing. PARS actioning the PARS strategy. So the first part of that was the playground. So you'll see in there that we've got stage 1 for playground investment. Was the first part that was identified for us for the funding. They did an audit of all the playgrounds, and she and the team are just working through that one to identify which ones need to be done and then getting the works ordered for doing that. the next part will be stage 2 is support projects, and then also the co-funding of a major project, but that will be further refined and brought back to council for decisions on those.
Oh, yes. Sorry, can I ask a question on this? Sure. Just get me through. I mean, I like the presentation of this, Mike, but I might have missed the memo, but on the right-hand side, you've got the total budget at 552 for PARS.
Yeah.
And then your estimate 1.5. I'll just say it quickly.
Yeah. No, so.
So, excuse me. So for this one here, being a so for a multi-ed project, we're going with a planned budget there is 1.5. The current budget that was put in for this current financial year is that, and it will tally up as we go through the project. Red is the forecast.
He's just wrote me off.
Moving into upgrade of council owned reserves, it's very much in the same space as what they're currently doing with the playgrounds. So they're working through those at this current stage, as well as the future community urban design project. And I know that we've all been following that closely with the strategies and district plan reviews.
Any questions of Mike? Being none, we happy to move the recommendation. Moved Sharon, seconded Mike. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thanks, Mike. It was a nice, short, sweet one for you for a change. Thank you.
The formats of you need to get your head around.
He's young. You'll cope. Thanks, Mike. So do we have to get Amy back now, or is Amy doing this? Or? Oh, she's meeting. Okay. God, we're going to work right through that. Thank you, Raj. Shall we take the report as read, please? And where to from there? Just questions from how you'd like it? Do you want to go through page by page or just questions at random? Okay.
No.
If I can, through Chair, just highlight just quickly into para 3.15 and 3.16. What Amy has done is looked at options and done some really good analysis. And I think her concern was to have the information required for us to do the growth strategy and the district plan review, but also ensure that we collected the information that's required. So analysis, she looked at option 3B as a preferred option, but since the rest of the regional councils were not in preference of that, they only preferred 3A. But then what the approach Amy has taken is that if we need to do additional mapping, let's have it targeted rather than have it as a general. So I support that approach rather than have a generic cost, which is quite, really is, it's quite expensive. But I think taking a targeted approach. So I think the work that we're doing, the growth strategy, would help identify where, if needed, we needed some additional, and then we could engage that directly. And because the growth strategy as a project is funded through the Better Off funding that we're using, if any additional mapping is needed, we could pull into that resource. So I think that's a really good approach for us to take.
Thanks, Ellie. Item 3.14 really jumped out at me. I have a lot of respect for Amy's abilities, and to have in there that in principle she is satisfied with the mapping decision and doesn't think that we require any additional mapping gives me a great deal of comfort and confidence. Depending if other committee members have anything else to say, I am more than happy to move both of those recommendations.
Thank you, Scott. That's really good, and I absolutely endorse what you're saying. We need to be guided by Amy. She really knows her stuff, and her reports have been outstanding. So we do have a mover and a seconder. No, Mike, did you want to speak? Sorry. Sorry.
I did want to speak to you. I saw that, but then further on, I saw that we had to have a response in by 24 or 25 somewhere else, and I haven't highlighted it. So And the question for me was, a lot of this is to do with horizons and land mapping. Is Alan Bimbo been involved in this? Representative for Tararua on the Horizon Council?
So he would have been.
Be in dialogue with Tararua District Council?
Not that I'm aware of.
Amy is in discussions with the planners in Horizons, and the planners are the one that doing the work in terms of doing the regional mapping. So she's been in discussion with the planners in Horizons.
So she's working with the operational team, not governance on this. Thank you.
Does say Chair Ellison on in the attachment, Tararua District Council and Ruapeo District Council reps were not in the workshop. Now,
Thank you for that. Okay, are there any further discussion?
Well, I can gather through Chair Ellison, we're not affected so long as we go with, if we're going with 3B, it's not going to affect our growth ambitions in terms of rezoning, and that's all that we're really talking about. Any mapping outside that is irrelevant to us. Yeah.
and I did get a sense for you, Chair Ellison, to you, Raj, that if we hadn't started the urban growth work, we may be in a slightly different position. But that work so far has given us the confidence that we've got pretty good handle on the mapping.
Got a spade in the ground.
I could draw the attention to para 3.16, where Amy also indicated that the intention that the government has signaled that they would remove. So if that's the case, then we may not need this additional mapping. So I think that's the analysis that Amy has gone through.
Thank you, Raj. Is there any further discussion? Oh, Adele? Recommendation. There are recommendations for that. I missed that. Moved and seconded. Yep. Yep. Yeah, Peter, yes, Scott and Peter were the movers and seconders. So the recommendation is that the report be received, and the second recommendation is that the council approves mapping option 3A, isn't it, for NPS HPL as recommended, and does not require additional land use classification mapping to be carried out for the district. Okay, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you, everybody, for your attention. It's been a very, very long day, and it's been really interesting meeting. So to explore Paetua to get the Mokamok presentation again.
That well.
Sarah, she's no smoke. She's no smoke. Yeah. The women are the presenters, in those cases. Okay, so I'll declare the meeting closed at 4:14.